Excuse me,
Oh,
Laurie.
Mr. Brackett, I'm sorry, Mr. Brackett.
Oh, I didn't mean to startle you.
That's all right.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Yes, sir.
He's gone from there. The evil is gone. Happy Halloween, y'all. In the spirit of All Hallows Eve, we have the OG 1978 John Carpenter Halloween on the docket for episode 13 of Chopping It Up. We're pairing that with the 2007 Rob Zombie remake by the same name. We take what is arguably the very first modern slasher film and break it down for through lines with zombies reimagining, including plumbing the depths of Michael Myers' to this point mysterious childhood. The gang's all here. We are at full strength. Once again, I'm your host, Jesse Goodman. He looks like a relief map for the planet Venus, or maybe Uranus. Co-host and intrepid field reporter Michael Sled is here. He's so dumb he couldn't make Kool-Aid because he couldn't figure out how to get 2 quarts of water into those little paper packets. Joel Reeves joins us. Every time he's on the show, there's always a happy ending. People are glad it's over. Executive producer and co-host Jay has returned. Jazz, glad to see you back, especially after seeing your front. Her real name is Virginia. They called her Virgin for short, but not for long. Sector 8 drone, co-host, executive HR supervisor, and assistant producer Jeannie Simone joins us. That's a lot of job titles, Jeannie. You may be in line for a salary bump if you can convince your buddies up in corporate to acquiesce. All right, friends. This one should be a lot of fun. Grab your pumpkins and your pumpkin beers if you have them, your Captain Kirk masks and your knives, and get ready because the boogeyman is coming. Let's get to it. All right. First impressions and meat cleaver ratings. I'll go ahead and kick it off. Jeannie, you're second. Jazz, and then Joel, and then Sled. I'll make it short and sweet. The OG Halloween, the Carpenter, which I'd seen both of these before, but not for some time, and I'm certainly not someone who's seen them a bunch of times. Halloween is kind of a blind spot for me. I'm going to give the OG Halloween a 4.1031 meat cleavers. Sui generis, the first modern slasher or proto slasher, whatever you want to call it. I think someone will throw Texas Chainsaw Massacre at me, but we'll argue about that later. But I think it's the slasher upon which all those slasher tropes and rules originate from, for the most part. Carpenter adds a deft touch as a director, and successfully elevates what would normally just be, schlock. And in that effort, he creates like a subgenre that sort of makes this a landmark movie. Zombies Halloween, the 2007 version. I have some issues with Zombie. I think everyone has a strong opinion on Rob Zombie. In my 20s, I really loved his stuff. And we'd actually previously considered pairing House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. But the rewatchings were just tough for me for that. He's just so derivative. That's essentially a pastiche of scenes that he rips off from his favorite movies and directors. So they have trouble standing up on their own. Halloween's okay. First 40-ish minutes actually work against things, but we can also get into that later in the general discussion. He's technically sound. He's proficient. He's serviceable as a director, but I don't know if that's that much of a compliment. It kind of, the last half of the movie, he kind of does it word for word, verse for verse. It's like if you've ever seen Kenneth Branagh doing Shakespeare, it's almost syllable for syllable, scene for scene. So it's like, where's the art? If I wanted to watch the original, if I had a carbon copy, I'd just watch the original. I gave it 3.000000001 meat cleavers.
All right. I'm with you, Jess. OG slasher Halloween. I am going to go 4.123 meat cleavers. I just think I actually had never, I thought I had never seen this, and I have memories of it, and it led me down a rabbit hole of when they released it on network TV. And so I was researching that because I could have sworn I had seen it on TV somewhere, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, classic slasher, all the way around. The 2007 Rob Zombie one, I'm not even sure that I finished it. I'm going to give it in accordance to the cinematic auras of that. A nice rusty, rotted out meat cleaver for it. I think Rob Zombie would have appreciated that, because I felt like the whole movie I just wanted to wash everybody's hair for it.
All right.
Yeah. So OG Halloween. I'm a huge Carpenter mark. Across the board, and Halloween is one of the ones where it never really connected with me as a slasher movie when I was a kid. I was much more like a Friday the 13th kid, and Halloween just seemed like a little bit slower paced. And I still think that that's kind of true. Like, I think if you view it in like strictly objective terms, it's kind of like the way you view Citizen Kane. It's sort of like the movie as itself is like an X, but because it is the progenitor of so many things that came after, and the sort of originator and innovator of a lot of things, you have to sort of like put that in context as well. So I'm going to give it like two different ratings. One is like kind of like my rewatchability index rating or something like that, where I'm going to make it like a 3.25. I just think there's a lot of slow pacing in it, not all of which necessarily contributes to ratcheting up the tension, and some messy stuff that's, also it's a very low budget. And so I excuse that, but I think like 3.25 in rewatchability, but a 4.0 cleavers just in terms of absolute, because you have to place it in the historic cinematic context. The Rob Zombie 2007 one is one of the absolute worst things I have ever seen in my entire life. Most of my notes past, I think, like the 30-minute point of the movie, I wrote multiple times, I can't wait for this to be over. I just like, there's almost no redeeming qualities to this movie. It's not so, there's actually exactly one, and it's one particular character who I guarantee the actor ignored every piece of direction Rob Zombie gave him and just did his own thing. But yeah, this is just like a borderline unwatchable movie for me. And so, because I want to reserve the absolute zero for something that could be possibly worse in the future.
A future Jesse movie, I assume. Something like
but this is getting like a 0.25 cleaver. It's just something I absolutely hate it. I hate everyone involved in this movie. I hate the people who funded this movie. I hate Rob Zombie now with a passion that burns as hot as 1,000 suns.
You don't hate Big Joe Grizzly.
That's exactly the character who is the one redeeming aspect of this movie. And I guarantee that guy just ignored everything Rob Zombie had to say and just did his own thing.
Joel,
so that's what I got to say.
What do you got, Joel?
Well, I'm not going to say that much different from everything everyone has said so far. I'm, like Jay said, I'm a Carpenter mark as well. I was more of a Nightmare on Elm Street guy growing up as my slasher. So Halloween, I had seen all the Halloweens, but not as many times. I kind of loved this. I really enjoyed it. And I agree with you, Jay, that it has like lulls, but that still worked for me. Like I was still, okay, I'm catching my breath, blah, blah, blah. And then the tension would build again. So I was okay with it. But so I ended up giving that like 4.25 cleavers. So 4.25. Yeah, Rob Zombie. So the only thing that Rob Zombie really has that I do enjoy is his ability to pull in like, what would you call them? Like journeyman actors. Like he just finds these
actors, yeah.
B actors all over the place. I mean, that cast is a mile long of people where you go, oh, that guy. Yeah. So that's kind of fun for me. But beyond that, and that's probably why I got to a 2 on this. But other than that, it's like the one thing that was interesting that they could have gone all in on to kind of make it its own thing was the young Michael. And they didn't do that. And that kind of defeats the whole point of the shape. But anyway, so I give it a 2.
We'll get into that later. Sled, yep. What do we got here, Sled?
My opinion aligns pretty closely with Jay's. I was never a huge Halloween fan growing up. I didn't watch it much. I don't know if I ever watched it until I was a little bit older. So it holds no nostalgic value for me. Um, I think the first one is, again, it has slow parts. It has some parts that I really, really like. Overall, I'll give it a 3.5. Halloween remake from Rob Zombie is a fucking piece of shit. It's it's a purpose. There's no purpose in this movie existing. It's
Yeah.
if there's, well, other than the one part that I already mentioned, that's the only redeeming aspect of the whole thing. The rest of it is either so much a copy to add nothing to the original, or where they did get different was worse. Like
It was the wrong, yeah.
I heard Joel, you mentioned the kid being the part they should have explored. That made it worse. I don't want to know about the kid.
No,
You're
I agree
humanizing.
with you.
I actually think it was, they should have, I mean, yeah, they just
But
they
I know,
tried to.
we'll get into it. I know.
I agree with
Yeah,
you.
so
Jesse and I had
I-
a long conversation about this.
I'll give it a generous 0.5 stars or cleavers.
Damn. All right. Okay. That's maybe collectively, guys, the worst any movie's ever been rated on this show.
Just a
Let's go
piece of
ahead.
a cleaver, really. It's just
Yeah,
a piece
I
of
mean,
cleaver.
it's similar to Jay. I'm holding out that maybe there's something that I'll
There's
dislike
gotta
more
be something worse.
Right. All right.
than this.
Let's roll right into Joel's movie stats, where he breaks down all the relevant numbers for us. But I am going to do my best Rick Rude impersonation here. All you basement dwelling neck bearded dweebs, keep your mouths shut while I introduce you to a real podcast segment. Jazz, hit the music.
All right.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to start with the 78 Halloween for obvious reasons. Directed by John Carpenter. Written by John Carpenter. I don't need to go through John Carpenter's filmography, do I? I mean, like the obvious. We've already done a couple of his movies, but so you're going to see a handful of the actors in this that come back in Assault on Precinct 13 or whatever it is, and The Fog and a bunch of other things. But he's also known for The Thing, a whole bunch of great movies. Then writer was also John Carpenter, but Deborah Hill was kind of his partner on this. She helped him write The Fog. Actually, I think she got solo credit for The Fog, and was also involved with Assault on Precinct. I always forget which one it is, but
13, you're right.
13.
Yeah.
So the cinematographer here is a gentleman by the name of Dean Cundy, and he's most famous for his work in Jurassic Park. But he was also involved as the cinematographer for Apollo 13 and Back to the Future 3. Oh, God, I forgot to mention Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is kind of one of my faves. So
Question.
those are, yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Does that qualify as children's horror?
Maybe. And if so, we've got something you and I have talked about multiple times, pairing it with. But anyways, so he's kind of well known. And then Irwin Yamblens, I'm not sure how you say that, was one of the producers of note. He was known for, well, this Apocalypse Now he was involved in, but I think he was crew. He was a producer on Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is absolutely batshit crazy. And producers of one of my favorite movies, because I have no taste, Men at Work. And then let's see who else we got. Oh yeah, John Carpenter was also a producer on this. So this is really lean runtime of an hour and 31 minutes. It, I think, moves pretty well. Like Jay said, there's a couple little lags, but generally it's pretty fast paced. It had a incredibly low budget of $325,000 and is one of the most profitable horror movies of all time, making $70 million. Now, some accounts was that it was 45, but either way, that would put it well over the 150-fold its book. And the top estimate of 70 million puts it at 215 times the money put into it. So it was a huge success. It was also a gigantic critical success and a Metascore for a horror movie, that is. But it had a Metascore of 90, which means critics at the time thought very highly of this relative to pretty much any other horror movie there is. IMDb score, so just regular users like you and me, have it at a 7.7, which is pretty great. I'm just going to go through the top couple of actors and actresses. So the obvious ones are the two leads, other than Michael himself, is Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. He's famous for The Great Escape and a handful of other big things. Let me see. Look, well, obviously reprises his role in Halloween 2, but he's also Blofeld in You'll Only Live Twice. So he's the famous Bond villain. And then you have Scream Queen herself, Jamie Lee Curtis, who I'm not going to run through her filmography. She's been in everything. She's amazing. Nancy Keys is Annie, one of the friends. She shows up again in The Fog. She's recast in a different role in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and she's in Assault on Precinct 13. And then I guess I'll do 5. PJ Solis, who's Linda, one of the other friends. She was really interesting because she shows up in some really strange things, but the big one is Carrie. She's the mom. I'm pretty sure it's the mom, but the one who tries to stab Carrie. I'm pretty confident.
I don't think so.
Is she one of the friends? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Norma. I can't remember which one's Norma.
She was killed by the fire hose
Yeah.
when Carrie goes ape shit.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm looking. It's Amy Irvin. Amy Irvin is the mom.
No, she's not the mom. She's another friend. She's the good friend that convinces. Yeah.
I gotcha. My mistake. So, in going back, the only other person I really wanted to mention was the guy who plays Michael. Let me find him. That's Tommy. Tommy goes back. So Tony Moran. Tony Moran doesn't have a very big career beyond this. He does a couple small horror movies, but he does a lot on the signature circuit. So he makes his money at the conferences and stuff. All right, switching over to Halloween Rob Zombie version. Let's see, bring that up. So that came out in 2007. It was written and directed by Rob Zombie, who we know for House of a Thousand Corpses, Halloween, Halloween 2. There's a bunch of stuff. Cinematographer was Phil Parment. Sure. And he is not known for a lot beyond this. Oh, he did do Grindhouse and 4 Rooms, but he was only one of the cinematographers on Grindhouse. So I think it's I can't remember which.
He did 4 Rooms? I love that fucking movie.
Yeah, he did.
He did the whole thing or just one of them?
No, I think he did the whole thing, but
okay.
I can't tell from his credits on IMDb for him. It looks like he did the werewolf one, which I'm not remembering, for Grindhouse.
Yeah, I'm talking about 4 Rooms.
Yeah, no, I was just saying the other one. So let's see. Who else we got? Let's go down into the numbers. So, actually, producers. Both the Weinsteins were producers on this film. So,
I might
that
have
is
to
what it
change
is.
my opinion on it. Maybe
Oh
it was like-
boy. Oh boy. So it was an hour and 49 minutes. So somehow it was both longer and less interesting than the original. And it cost $15 million to make. I don't know where that money was spent, but it was $15 million and it made $80 million, 80 and a half. So it was a profitable film. It's on the sequel, so it did pretty well. It has an IMDb score of 6 and a Meta score of 47. So critics largely panned it. I'm just going to go through the top couple of people that I noticed in the cast. So you've got Michael McDowell, obviously is Samuel Loomis, and then you got Sarah, or what is it, Sherry Moon Zombie, who is Deborah Myers, and then what's her name? The one who plays Jamie Lee Curtis's character. I can't find it. Do any of you guys remember? Oh, it's Laura Strode. There you go. It's Scott Taylor Compton. Scout. Sorry. Thank you. She shows up in both the Halloweens, but she's also in some weird movie with Lita Ford called The Runaways. I've never seen it, but I think she does a few other small things here and there. And then the big guy who plays Michael Myers is Tyler Mane. So,
you're gonna do that like Manet or
Manet.
Manet.
Well,
I was hoping for Manet.
You want me to give it a shot with the young Michael?
Tyler Mayonnaise.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Tyler
Go
Mayonnaise. Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So young Michael's played by this odd-looking albino named Dig Farik.
It's not a dig.
I have no idea. How do you say that name? I don't know.
I think that's close enough. It looks like a fucking. Is he
Swedish? Is my guess, but I don't know.
It says he's born in fucking California. The kid's just a goddamn poser.
Just a weirdo.
Dag Neargard Ferk. I'm gonna go with that. But
sure, and he's from San Diego.
His mother's Mickey Ferk, who is an actress.
This guy can go to hell.
I was gonna say
it's a made up goddamn name. That kid's not fucking Swedish or whatever.
I think it's Celtic, actually.
Yeah, it looks like it looks Irish or something.
You guys don't really know. I was gonna save this for later, but he was actually born and raised in Compton. Jazz, let him know where he's really from.
All right, ready?
What in the hell?
Killers all around me and they finish shooting blast. Kill it, I got a recipe. NASCAR, take out everything. Doc said I needed therapy. Third eye, get him. Headshot, it's a memory. That's your fault.
That's your boy Dag. He is an established rapper.
That's Great Dag to you.
That's great. Pardon me. By the name Great Dag. This is from the album Beats from the Crypt, and this song is called Mask.
What is happening?
Pass me the mask.
Get this out of my segment. What's
All right,
happening?
Jazz, cut it.
So did he have to keep acting after he made that, or was it just like he
His
retired?
royalties
He's
from that will
living off
set
the
you up.
royalties
Yeah,
on that shit.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
All right, so I'm done.
He's done.
Anybody else wants to chime in?
Oh, I love this section.
Sled.
But I will take a back seat to anybody else.
Okay,
who
look,
wants to go
I do
first.
want to go first because I actually don't. I only have like one thing, and then you guys can rain down upon Joel. So the guy who plays Michael, or the shape from Zombies 2007 one, Tyler Manet, as we refer to him here at Chopping Up. His birth name is actually Daryl Carolat. He used to be a pro wrestler in the old WCW under several different ring names. One of them was originally he came in as a guy named Big Sky, who hailed from like Wyoming, and he teamed with a guy named Vinny Vegas, who was actually Kevin Nash or Diesel from the old WWF, now WWE.
Both excellent workers.
Oh, Jesus, God, Christ. And then he later became a bodyguard for Woman who managed Doom, a tag team of Doom. It was Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. His name
protected her from Chris Benoit.
That's right. His name was Nitron. Stop. From Nitron. He actually, the actor Tyler Main or Daryl Carolat was from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And Sled, I don't know if you got this. He trained briefly under Stu Hart in the dungeon. So that's all I had. That's all I had for anything.
So
that's all you got total?
I have stuff in the memory banks here, but I want to see what you guys have. I don't have anything else written down.
Well, remember how I was saying that I could have sworn I remember seeing it like on network TV. It did premiere on network TV in 1981, the same night that Halloween 2 premiered in the movie theater.
Okay.
And they had to like rewrite stuff. And so in the beginning, whatever they rewrote doesn't make sense. Like they added to it in a way.
I think while they were filming part 2, the TV release of part 1 was too short. They had to cut out a lot of the nudity and stuff like that for TV. So they filmed, while they were filming part 2, they filmed some extra scenes they inserted for the TV, for the TV version to make it longer. So that's probably what you're thinking of. I actually when I watched the OG version, I pulled it up on YouTube. Unbeknownst to me, I'm watching the unedited, the extra cut. So my version, Joel, was like 10, 15 minutes longer than what you're talking about. And I also had Joel and I briefly touch base, we talk or whatever. And I was mentioning scenes. He was like, what are you talking? Like, I don't know. What are you talking about? I didn't see that. And I realized, I was like, wait a second, what version am I watching?
Part where Michael goes hang gliding, apparently.
Yeah. It's totally, he stops by Starbucks. It's weird. He goes into the wrong house. He's in the closet. The parents are yelling and fighting. And he's just like, oh my God, this is terrible. No, I'm just kidding. That was my childhood. All right. What else you got, Sled?
What do I got? I haven't even started. So let's see. So one of the things I noticed, and I'm gonna have to go take pictures now. I still got to go take pictures of Poltergeist. I haven't gotten over there, but so the school was filmed at Garfield Elementary, which is in Alhambra, which is near here, and that's how they pronounce it here, is Alhambra.
Sled, where's here for listeners?
Oh, Los Angeles area. So when
I thought it was filmed in South Pasadena. Is that's
part of it? Yeah, some of it was in South Pasadena. They're right next to each other. They're pretty close.
Okay.
I always like that people here say Alhambra, because I remember when I first got here, I was like, well, it's Alhambra, and they're like, no, it's Alhambra. I was like, all right. So anyways, in a cemetery in Sierra Madre, I've been to that cemetery. I just didn't realize they film it there. Let's see, it's set in the fictional Haddonfield, Illinois. So I saw one thing where they filmed 2 of the homes are in Hollywood, and they were used for the climax because they had few palm trees. And they thought they closely resembled a Midwestern street because of that.
And
hold on,
and
Jeannie, what do you got?
Because it was filmed in Southern California, they had to create paper leaves, and they only used 3 pumpkins. So in the scene where Tommy gets the bullies, they had to do that in one cut because if it didn't work, they didn't have enough pumpkins. They couldn't find pumpkins.
The other two pumpkins were actually green, and they had to paint them orange.
Wow.
I mean, it's California. It's California in March, so
we do get pumpkins here, but not at that time of year. Joel, you mentioned Deborah Hill. I have notes that she helped write The Fog, Halloween 2, and Escape from L.A.
Yeah, that sounds right, because she definitely wrote The Fog.
Yeah, I didn't want to hype anything for John Carpenter because I don't think he needs it, but the one thing I did make note of was that he met the actress Adrienne Barbeau on set of his television film Someone's Watching Me, made immediately prior to Halloween, and they were married shortly after.
Zombie.
Adrienne Barbeau is really what caught my eye there.
Yeah.
But
Zombie tried to get, for his 2007 version, he tried to get Adrienne Barbeau.
I thought she had a part in it. I thought she had
it was cut. It didn't make it in.
Donald Pleasance. I noticed that he collaborated with Carpenter as the president in Escape from New York and the priest in Prince of Darkness, which we've discussed before. The part was originally intended for Peter Cushing, who was Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars, but he turned it down to the salary, which Pleasance only got paid $20K for this movie, which they filmed in 20 days, so that's still pretty good pay, I guess.
And percentage
and they
of their
approached
overall budget, it was big.
Yeah, and then they approached Christopher Lee, who also turned it down.
And Peter Cushing.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned
he
first.
said Cushing.
You did say Cushing. Oh.
This was Jamie Lee Curtis's debut. She only got paid $8K. Talk about whatever. Nick Castle, who we mentioned as the Shape, he was paid $25 a day. He co-wrote the screenplay for Escape from New York and wrote The Boy Who Could Fly. And he performed the title song for Big Trouble in Little China as part of a band, the Coupe de Villes, alongside John Carpenter and Thomas Lee Wallace, who directed Halloween 3, Fright Night Part 2, and the 1990 It miniseries, along with editing Halloween and The Fog. Tony Moran, who played Michael Myers, age 21. I didn't have a lot of notes about him other than that, funny thing was that due to his conduct around the film in later life, he was banned from attending the 2023 Halloween 45 Years of Terror convention by its organizer. I think he talked a lot of trash about just stuff that was supposedly going on. Nancy Keys, let's see, she's blah blah blah. Oh, you mentioned PJ Souls, whose real name is Pamela Jane. She was married to Dennis Quaid at the time this was made. He was considered for her role as the boyfriend, but had prior commitments.
Yeah, the boyfriend with glasses, the one who
Bob.
Bob. Yeah, he gets staked to the door.
Well, Sled, I don't know if you're going to say it, but actually what happened was during the theatrical release, PJ Souls and her husband, Dennis Quaid, were at the movie theaters, and they're watching the movie. And while the scene where she's lying in bed and telling Bob to go get a beer for her, and she's naked and her breasts are visible. And she says to him, right, you like what you see, or do you like what you see? And someone in the audience, some dude yells out, probably boozed up, yells, "Oh, I like what I see." And Quaid turns to her and he goes, "You want me to take care of this?" she's like, "No, just relax. It's fine."
Charles Cyphers is the sheriff. He was also in Assault on Precinct 13, Escape from New York, Halloween 2, and 2021 Halloween Kills. But bigger than that, he was in A Force of One with Chuck Norris. If you've seen that, that's the karate Chuck Norris movie, but he's actually supposed to be like a retired karate fighter. He was in Death Wish 2. Jesse's a big Death Wish 2 fan. Let's go. And he was the GM in Major League.
Wow, that's right.
Kyle Rich, I'm not even going to talk about her because she seems and then Sandy Johnson, who played Judith Myers, the sister. We've always got a Playboy connection. She was the Playmate of the Month in June of 1974.
Yeah. Her only objection was not to being naked. She was actually, tell you what, her mom had a terminal illness, like real stuff. And she said the only reason she went into acting is because she knew she could make money to help pay for treatments. Every single movie she was in, she was naked in. Her only complaint with Halloween was she was one of the few scenes actually in Halloween where there was blood. Her blood was dyeing her skin red or pink, and she was very upset with that. And they had to scrub it off manually because it was in her skin. And apparently someone was doing it, was hired to do it. It was very rough. And so Jamie Lee Curtis went over to her and did it gently. And so she was thankful for that. That was my anecdote for that. Would definitely pay money to watch Jamie Lee Curtis scrub her down, but whatever.
Yeah. So for Halloween, the reboot, you mentioned there's a couple you missed that I think. So Brad Dourif, who was the sheriff, that's from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Williams Forsythe, I think you touched on him. Danielle Harris is Annie Brackett. She was in Don't Tell Mom, the Babysitter's Dead, and she also played Bruce Willis's daughter in the last Boy Scout.
That's what it was.
And she was on Little Michael had a big crush on, which is acceptable because I looked up her age. She's actually 4 to 3 years older than me. Her Wikipedia page just says she was born in 76 or 77. So Tom Tolles as Larry Redgrave. That's Otis from Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Bill Moseley as Zach Z-Man Garrett. That's Chop Top.
Hold on.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Hold on, slow down 1 second because you went over Tom Tolles.
Yeah.
Where you know him from, right? Portrait, but he's actually Rob Zombie staple. So he was in.
I'm not.
Oh,
I have
God.
no interest in any other Rob Zombie
I
movies.
know, but I
after
know, but I
watching
just mean that
this.
he's very much like when we spoke about on the when we spoke about on Prime Cuts about how these guys, some of these directors have their own cast of people that they love to have, and so he was one of those guys. He was in Devil's Reach. No, he was in House of Thousand Corpses, among other zombie stuff. So
Well, he is the best.
Always got great mutton chops on him.
He is the best part of Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. Dee Wallace as Cynthia Strode. That's E.T.'s mom. Also in Hills Have Eyes,
Howling.
Yeah,
Cujo,
call back to Howling from
and
previous
Critters. We mentioned Ken Foree as Big Joe Grizzly.
The only good part of the movie.
The best part of the movie, other than maybe this one thing, which is Leslie Easterbrook as Patty Frost. That's one of the guards. So that was.
Well, hold on. That's another zombie girl from Devil's Rejects.
Yeah, well, she's Sergeant / Lieutenant / Captain Debbie Callahan in Police Academy.
Yes, she is.
She's possibly the greatest character in that series. So,
did you pick up Sid yet?
No, that's I was waiting on that, Joel. I don't know if I was getting there.
Sid Haig.
No, I didn't do everybody.
Oh, Sid Haig is the greatest guy out of the entire cast. Apologies to everyone
he's honestly
else.
one of my favorite.
He's the you know who he is, right? So you know Sid Haig, no? He was the cemetery worker who accompanies Loomis in the graveyard. I mean, he was in Devil's Rejects and House of Thousand Corpses.
I know.
Captain
his real name is
Devil's Rejects. Yeah,
Sidney Eddie Mosesian. He's an Armenian guy.
He was also in an episode of Dukes of Hazzard, and at one point, a friend of mine said, "I look like Sid Haig," which could not be. I mean, Jesus Christ! And then he rectified it by saying, "Well, young Sid Haig is what he said."
A miniature Sid Haig. He's a pretty big guy.
No, what are you saying? I'm not a big guy. 6 foot with heels on.
I think he was like 6'4" or 5, wasn't he? He looked.
No, he's a big guy.
Imposing.
Yeah, he is a big dude.
Oh shit! Right. He was also in Galaxy of Terror. Yeah,
Sid Haig is the. Apologies to Ken Foree. Said Sid Haig might be more of a B movie guy than he ever was.
It's a toss up, and that's why I said that the cast is, a mile long for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Sled, you still
we could
rolling?
go on and on about.
No. I tried. I like I said, there was a lot of stuff I glossed over. I just tried to hit the highlights.
Can I do one more thing then from the 2007 zombie one? Mickey Dolenz, the drummer for the Monkees, is the guy who sells Loomis the
That's
gun.
where I know that name from.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I thought that was pretty funny too. But yeah, let's go ahead and keep it moving. You know what? We're going to end up talking about more people as we get in the discussion, so we can always come back to that. But let's go ahead and roll into the general discussion now. We can talk about how these films fit in with the culture at the time, when they were released, major themes, contemporary culture, anything where they fit, in the cinematic landscape, tropes, subgenres, anything else we want to talk about. The one thing I wanted to say, I guess we get down to, I'll just lead off with it. Is this the first slasher movie?
I first major one, right? Other than the only other one I can think of is the 74 Chainsaw, right? Texas Chainsaw Massacre 74.
What does Psycho count as?
Yeah, and what's that, 64?
Yeah. I mean, the ones that people say are the potential ones that could be considered earlier are basically Black Christmas, Psycho, and TCM, right? So,
but it's in the very short list.
Yeah, I think those, and I already cheated because I thought of this question. I was really, I want Halloween to be the first slasher. I think Texas Chainsaw, Black Christmas, and Psycho. I think Psycho is ruled out because it's more, to me, it's more of a thriller.
It's more like a psychological thriller thing.
Right. And so I don't think that qualifies. Texas Chainsaw has the elements of a slasher, right? But not the finished product, right? It's like the final girl. But I think there was something I read, and let me pull up here.
It's also a family, Jesse.
Well, that was the thing. I was going to say is Wes Craven and Carpenter themselves have said that slasher movies
about family though too, isn't it?
Well, hold on. They have said that the slasher movies, quote, are about repression of the past. And then you look at Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, any of those, they all deal with trauma that resurfaces like in some way. And so I don't know. I don't know
Don't
the
think Texas Chainsaw
qualifies.
has that going on. Isn't that the whole thing? They all lost their jobs. It's all about
Well,
decay of a.
there's also the stalking aspect of the slasher who comes to you. In Texas Chainsaw, it's essentially a home invasion. Everyone comes to them. They walked into their house, like doing that,
Right.
you know. And then you have all the stuff with the whole family. There's other things going on. It's again, you could make the argument, and I would only argue for so long that it's not a slasher. It's, if anything, it has the elements of it, proto slasher, whatever you want to call it. But I think this is the first modern together. Every trope that comes from slasher movies almost entirely is born from this movie. Everyone's getting naked and having sex, they're going to die. Right. There are these different types. This is the bookish, nerdy girl, virginal girl. This is this kind of guy. This is the whatever, like everyone is
It's literally all the tropes they make fun of in that Cabin in the Woods, right? Like it's literally all of those that they call out in that movie, which is, you know, the meta movie of this.
The authorities who don't believe it. Initially thing.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
a lot
always
of that,
somebody warning, right? Like the doctors, like you don't understand.
Yeah, and then he gets ignored. Right.
You know what? And as you say this, Jesse and I talked about this just a tiny bit. But Jay, you and Jeannie both just said something that makes me think this might be more and more so, is that it reminds me a lot of Jaws, right? Like it has weird parallels to Jaws in that, you know, you've got exactly what you just said, like the authorities who don't want to believe it for whatever reason. You've got an expert who's saying, no. You've got effectively Loomis kind of does the role of two of the characters, right? Like, so yeah, I don't know. I think Halloween is kind of the precursor to all of these movies. And
have y'all seen Black Christmas?
Yeah, I have.
It's been a long time. I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember much of it.
Sled, do you want to give the back? I feel like you know the anecdote.
I haven't seen it. I just remember reading that that was like a huge, really big influence on it.
So Carpenter sat down with, oh God, now I'm going to try to remember the name of the director of Black Christmas, Bob something.
Bob Clark.
Is that right? Okay, so he sat down with Bob Clark and they were having dinner, and Carpenter asks him at one point, "Hey, are you ever going to do a sequel to Black Christmas?" And he's like, "No, you know, I think I'm done. I'm not going to do that." They ended up chatting about it further, and he's like, "You know, if I were going to do something, I would probably do it around Halloween, and it would have babysitters in it, and it would be like that." Carpenter was basically like, "Oh, cool," and then fucking basically was like, "Can I make that movie?" And it started out going to be a sequel to Black Christmas. It became its own thing, and it was actually Halloween was originally titled The Babysitter Murders, which of course producers were like, "Get the fuck out of here. We're not calling it that. We're just calling it Halloween." But so it actually sprang forth from Black Christmas. So directly. So I mean, you can make that argument, you know, that Black Christmas was the first one there for slasher.
The proto.
Proto. You guys want to talk about anything? Cause I have some other themes I wanted to get into.
I think one of the big differences between the two, right, was how much the zombie version in the beginning portrayed Michael and his family and his background.
Oh, here we go.
And it's almost like you're like, yeah, no shit. Like you had a horrible home life, right? I felt like I had to call DHS just watching it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, actually, I don't know.
Like,
I feel like they didn't make it bad enough. I mean, my home life was not that much worse than what they showed there, and
oh no,
Jesus Christ! Right? It offers an explanation.
I know, but it was like it screwed it up.
Well,
I thought it screwed it up. It showed too much.
Yeah, because it offers an explanation, which the original one didn't, which is what made the original one work. Because you're like, oh my God, here's this young kid. He's clearly comes from an intact house, right? He's got both parents at home. He's got an older sister. Yeah. You're like, what the fuck happened to him that makes him do this? And then with the zombie one, you're like, yeah, okay, I could see. Like, he clearly, you know,
I mean,
he hasn't in his life, and you're like, all right, so I don't really, you almost want to sympathize with the first Michael because you're like, something must have happened. And the second one, you're like, Stay in there.
Well, in the OG one, like it's so much better, I think, as a horror also, that he's this kind of like force of, like, it's this mystery.
Right.
It's this force of
And he
nature.
was
Who was
born,
it? Is it demonic possession? Is it crazy? Did
Right.
something happen? And I think that's so much better.
And that
then
was
in the
kind
second,
of. Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
I would just want to say one thing about the second one, or one. It's in the second one, like, I don't know if zombies, like, what's the reason to remake it, and what am I going to hang my hat on to remake it, and I'll do this as like the reason for it. But he did it poorly. Like, it's really, I think, like, badly done. Contrary to what other people say, I think the camera work is like super shitty. There's all these like close-up shaky shots of people's faces. Absolute garbage. I hate them. I hate every motherfucker involved in this movie. And
well, that's not incompetence. You just disagree with the style. His shaky camera stuff is a signature of his. It's always
the
been
way
there.
how close it is to people's face.
He does that on purpose. You got to see his stuff. I'm telling you, it's in every movie.
Well, it's also incompetence. Then
So
he's a bad filmmaker.
Okay, well, you can argue he's a bad filmmaker, but you can't argue that like he's intentionally doing that. I'll just say that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He's intentionally incompetent. And then the other aspect of it is like the beginning of it also just sort of is like, am I supposed to feel sympathy?
Right.
Like, what are you trying to make me feel with this shit? Right. And then because the part of it, just the last thing I'll say, and I'll leave the rest of it alone. You know the movie Precious, that that's basically about like
I never saw it, but yes,
it's basically like this poverty porn deal. Yeah. And this is like his attempt at like poverty porn, except in like white trash instead of like black ghetto. And it's just sort of like, what are you doing? And then they do it, and then there's like a break, and they're like, and now we're gonna do a second movie. So like, and then there's a second movie at the end. It's like, what the fuck is this?
All right,
shit?
so look, so the explanation, which I'm not defending. Although I think I am by then is going to end up defending Zombie because I loved him when I was like 27.
Way too old to love this shit.
I know. And look, dude, believe me, I'm way late on everything. So Zombie originally pitched having an entire movie on Michael Myers' childhood. Okay. That was what he wanted to do. Now, whether we agree with how he did
that would
it
have been
or
even
whatever,
worse.
I see. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and we can get into that in a second. But what happened was Weinstein was like, no, you're not doing that. You got to do fucking Halloween. So he split the difference, which is why you see 43 and change minutes into the movie, we go from childhood abruptly to beat for beat Kenneth Branagh Shakespeare version. We're doing everything that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And to clarify my point from earlier, where I was saying, like, I don't understand why you would start with the 43 minutes. So that actually clarifies a lot, right? Like, that is why. But I think Zombie was probably onto something. Like, if you're gonna try and do a swerve, do it all the way. Don't do it like part of the way.
Now, we all disagree with that swerve, right? We all disagree with it, but I can respect artistically that he was like, here's what I want to do. Even though it runs contra to
I mean, I think he did it poorly. I mean, I think that would be the bigger issue is like, well, I think you can make a creepier, like that kid. So the kid wasn't creepy. Like, they didn't do a good job of him being like, they made him too, like, I mean,
angsty.
Michael Myers.
He might as well be wearing a Slipknot shirt.
Yeah, he's just. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he's like too.
Might have been. I don't
whatever. I mean,
yeah.
If you're gonna make Michael Myers, Michael Myers is. Yeah. They
made the emo version of it, and if they're gonna do the childhood version, like doing something that's like a lot more sort of black magic, mysterious outside forces thing could have been like way more interesting.
Well, I was going to say, and
or just he was always kind of cold. I mean, it just none of it conveyed. I know that there was there was stuff talking about the guy's performance, but so much of it was like, oh, you've got this whole, whatever the thing is by Dr. Loomis where he's, black eyes and blah, 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 blah. But you're watching it, and that's not what's going on the fucking screen. That's not the kid that you're watching. So it just doesn't convey well. It's not there. I'm seeing this kid actually on screen, and then you're doing this thing where he came here and he was this and this, and it just doesn't present. And it's again like revealing the monster. You fuck things up if you try and have a monster and you show it and you can't show it in a way that's actually scary.
Well, the thing that Joel and I talked about was, so what makes the OG Halloween scary, and a lot of what the original slasher films and things like that took advantage of was the presumed comfort and safety of the suburbs and the exurbs, right? And this community in these neighborhoods that are innocent, largely white, right? Largely whatever all these stereotypes are. And the idea that evil incarnate could come to your town on a wonderful, beautiful night with leaves, painted paper leaves flowing in the streets, which, by the way, Robert Englund was tasked with cleaning those up one night, just so you know. So there's a Freddy crossover there. Carpenter had him fucking clean up the leaves.
And
That's
he's
awesome.
a janitor. He's a janitor, is what you're telling me.
So that happens, right? But then we set that. But then when Zombie gives us the background, okay, he changes the dates, which we can get into later. It was originally in the OG Halloween at 63. 15 years later, it's 1978.
Yeah.
Michael comes out. Okay. With Zombie, it's more fuzzy. We can get into the numbers later. But the idea is that bubble has already burst in real life. Columbine has happened. Kids are murderers in every
post 9/11.
The school is post 9/11. The innocence is gone. The fig leaf is removed. The mask is off. No pun intended. And we know that kids are evil. And now, like you're saying, Sled, you're alluding to, like, this childhood that we portray is a nasty, depressing, sad childhood that can force a lot of trauma on a kid. Unfortunately, It's not abnormal, and it's certainly not the most evil incarnate absence of any emotion kid you're ever going to raise. And even if it is, I don't know, in that America in the late 90s, we'd already seen it. Like, it's already happened to us. It was on the news.
Jay said something, and so did, I'm sorry, Jeannie.
No, it's good.
You mind if I finish? All right. So Jay and Michael both kind of got on this, where it's the kid they use in the 2007 version, right? Like, because we see his upbringing, and because he's kind of emo and, like, you know,
hit the music,
all these things. It's because he's all those things, right? Like,
that's great day, baby.
Once we it's just not that scary, right? Like, the jump from the little kid in the 78 version, where he's like in the kind of little angelic, cute outfit, and he's got that gigantic butcher knife with blood all over it, and then to the shape, right, is scary. It's inherently scary, right? Like, in comparison. So, anyways, that was all I was going to say. Jeannie, what were you going to say?
No, that was way more impactful than what I'm going to say. I just think too, like, they made it very sensationalized. Like, 10-year-old Michael Myers. Okay, first of all, he's a minor. They're never going to say his name.
Yep.
They are never going to say his name on the news.
That's a good point. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I'm like,
there's a lot of problems with that scene.
Yeah.
I'll jump in after you're done.
Yeah. So that just, I was like, yeah, that's not to add on to all the rest of the reasons that I didn't like Rob's version.
Yeah.
Our first name basis now, Rob Zombie. Zombie, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing is, like, I have to say, like, just as a matter of bad screenwriting and bad filmmaking, that police news, the news report that was, like, happening outside, like, took me completely out of the movie because it's so unrealistic and so bad. They're like, 10-year-old Mike Myers, these many stab wounds, and then this happened, and then there's where this person. So I was like, there's no way you have all this information. Like, no. The coroner hasn't done shit. Nobody's done shit. They haven't. It's like,
and you would never
it just, like,
report
completely took me out of it. It's like, not even the police know this goddamn information yet.
You got to understand that Zombie, you know, this is just such an indictment. See, I feel bad because he's clearly a fan of the genre. He's studied, he's become proficient. We can argue about how proficient, Jazz, I know, but he's a movie maker. He's a competent director, even if you disagree with his choices.
I also disagree with everything you just said.
Okay, that's okay, but let me get through. Let me get through it. So, like, that happens, but what will never change about him, and it runs through as a common thread with all of his movies if you've seen them. He equates bigger with better. So scarier to him means more blood, more gore.
This gets to what I was about to
right. And what's scarier than
6'3" guy?
Oh
right?
yeah, a 6'9" guy who's built like a brick shithouse is definitely scarier. And instead of there's an old adage in literature, Jazz is a fellow English major, you know, right? It's show, don't tell, right? You're supposed to show. You don't want to. You don't want all this expository. This guy was a bad guy. No, it's the inverse is true with film, right? But like, he doesn't get that. He thinks if I just show more and more and more and more, it will be no. show less. Don't give me anything about Michael as a kid. He's just an elemental evil roaming the planet.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I was
like,
gonna
the
say-
last, just to like the last thing I want to tie up on the whole showing stuff as a kid thing is like, in addition to the stuff you said, which is like the era, is let out of the balloon by the fact that, Columbine, 9/11, you're actually not safe. The other thing is like, he actually picks up the worst of both worlds. Because on the one hand, everything's scary. On the other hand, where what's happening to this kid is like worse than the average suburb to some degree, but then he makes it so different from the average suburb that it's like, well, shit, I'm glad I don't live around those people. All right, back to my regular life.
Yeah.
He made it more distant. You know what I mean? So he actually picked up like the worst. It's like, on the one hand, the evil can come anywhere. We already know that. We've lived through it ourselves. And B, you've othered these people to the extent that like the people are like, yeah, this can't happen to me. That's not my family.
Like you show the opening scene where they show them in the kitchen. You got Sherry Moon Zappa, right? Deborah Myers, Michael Myers' mom. You got William Forsythe, Ronnie, the stepdad or boyfriend. And it's like, so we're trying to portray Ronnie, and I love William Forsythe. But like, you can do a lot more with less. I don't need him screaming at the top of his fucking lungs, "You fucking bitch with the flat, saggy tits," blah, blah. It's really off-putting. And I don't care about violence or profanity, but like, it's completely unnecessary. And instead of saying when the daughter comes in, the, teenage daughter, "Oh, she's got a nice dumper on her, nice tits," you could just subtly have him, when she walks by, brush up against her with his shoulder. It could be so much. You could or his stump. But when
or
you're
just not have the scene.
But
right?
no, you can have the scene. But when you're a hammer, everything
no,
is a nail. And Rob Zombie's a hammer, so everything is a nail to him. He's just got to fucking destroy everything and make it bigger and better and bloodier and whatever. And by the way, Forsythe actually got in a motorcycle accident. His cast on his leg was real. They were just going to do an arm cast, so they just doubled up on all his shit because he couldn't walk anyway. So they're like, all right, just make him fully casted up with everything.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the funniest things to me about, Zombie's supposedly such a huge fan and loves all these movies. And Jesse, it made me think of it even more, where you're talking about he goes for scary is bigger and better, like, rather than, the things that are actually scary. And for me, I think the most disturbing parts of the first one are related to kind of what I saw described as the psychosexual fury of his killings in it. And remembering this movie when I had seen it when I was younger, and the way I always see it described is that Michael Myers, he's evil incarnate. He's got these black eyes. It evokes this kind of emotionless thing. But then when you go back and watch the original movie, probably the most disturbing thing about the killings, in my opinion, particularly of the women, are the noises. So the sounds that he makes, like, he's not a silent killer. He's making a lot of noise while he's killing. It's a lot of it's very active as far as what's going on. And they totally lost that in the remake. The remake, he's just a big giant guy who smashes people up and just fucking butchers everybody. But and they do go full unemotion, and so it's kind of ironic that that's actually what makes him less disturbing. So to me, those are the best parts in the beginning, is how it is all the killings that are around. I don't want to spoil my favorite kill scene by talking about it too much. But it's hard. But he totally missed that. He didn't get any of that in this.
It's funny that you mentioned it. I'm gonna. There's God, what was his name? I can't remember his name, but there is a graphic novelization, a comic version that adds on and builds the mythology of Halloween. Chris Steffers, I can't remember the name. It escaped me off the top of my head. But in that mythology that you're talking about, so Myers is the Shape, or Michael Myers, whatever you want to call him. He's a voyeur, and there's more than, I don't know how many scenes of him watching women undress, watching people have sex. Is
that why he stabbed his older sister?
So let me get there.
Metaphorically stab her again.
Wait a second. So in this novelization, he actually he's aroused. He's erect watching these things happen. And they talk about, and actually Carpenter himself in the OG movie discusses how grabs the biggest knife available. Right? We're penetrating with the knife. I mean, all the symbolism is there. Now, Carpenter, if you read enough about what he said about the movie, talks out of both sides of his mouth. He's always denying the type that was set with, oh, if you have sex, these things are, that's how you die because you're not virginal. And he's like, no, that was completely incidental. I didn't intend anything. But like at some point you got to take a stand on, like, you made this piece of art. You wrote all this stuff to happen. You and Deborah Hill was his wife or his girlfriend at the time. They were together. So they wrote this together. They put these scenes in there and then they tell us it means nothing. Like, and sometimes I'm not sure I believe it, but yeah, no, I think that those are two contradictory positions on Myers as this faceless, emotionless killer who also is psychosexually aroused by the things that he's watching and perpetrating. He's creating distractions so that they can so that he can observe them while they have sex. But
yeah, I mean, I think a read you could have at least on the first one, because it's impossible to have a read on the second one, is the basically like the look on little Michael's face as he exits and he takes his mask off. He's almost like what did I do? Why did I do it? Like,
was it like he popped his cherry?
Yeah, like observing his sister, like,
lost
made him
his
lose
virginity.
Control. He's like terrified of it, or who knows whatever is going on. And then basically everything that happens after is him reliving that killing, because it's basically always like, his sister's age girl and the boyfriend, getting killed over and over. And that's basically what he's doing. He's like reliving that. And, I do agree that there's this voyeuristic, it's like something happened. So he felt something sexual, something broke in his brain, or he felt he's doing something wrong. And then he's like, the way I'm going to solve this wrong is by eliminating the person who caused it in me. And then, just reliving that over and over again.
Sublimating that desire. But there's also a theory that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are star-crossed lovers, and Laurie is singing as a refrain multiple times in the movie, just the two of us, just you and me, away from everyone, we're gonna make it. And he hears her singing that at some point, and what's later revealed, at least of what's retconned into once you get to the sequel of the OG 1978, is that Laurie Strode and Mike Myers are in fact sister and brother, right? Which was built in later, but like it adds an element of incest to the whole thing, which frankly kind of enhances the franchise to me as far as how fucked up he is. Because if that initial thing with his older sister is a repression of a desire for her, then why not with Laurie? And also she's the first person he sees in first one young lady, attractive lady he sees outside of 15 years of being locked up. When he first gets out, he's in his own house. She comes up to drop off the key, which, by the way, Papa Strode is no way, shape, or form is he selling that fucking house. I don't know what kind of realtor he is. That thing hasn't been touched in fucking years. There's a dead dog being eaten inside of the living room. You're not going to sell the house.
It's being sold as is. It's a fixer-upper.
It's a fixer-upper. Yeah, burn that sumbitch to the ground.
Yeah, it's 2006.
No inspection. No inspection.
Right.
By the way,
cash.
I think I got to do it off memory because I didn't take the note, but Laurie Strode's dad, the guy who plays her father, is Tippi Hedren's ex-husband. Tippi Hedren was, of course, a star in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, who got killed in the shower in the beginning. And a lot of these influences from Carpenter come directly from Alfred Hitchcock and from Psycho and from The Birds, and how he is able to manufacture
tension
drama, and tension and all that, and suspense. But also, he's the father in real life of Melanie Griffith.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He's also from Baltimore, Maryland.
He is from Baltimore, Maryland. Yes.
So speaking of like kind of the, sorry, go ahead, JD.
No, I was just gonna say, I think I was reading about the timestamp for the boyfriend and
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you know where I'm going with this.
1 minute and 5 seconds, I think.
1 minute and 6 seconds for them to have slept together.
There you go. Well, you know what? You know what? I could do it. So they fucked twice, is what that means. Is it? No? Is it? No, we're not. No, that's short. You're saying.
Yeah. So you're talking about in the OG Halloween, from the time that the light flips on to the time he comes back down, basically fully dressed. Yeah, absolutely epic timing stuff there.
Look, maybe
and it was like, "I'll call you." Right?
Yeah.
Didn't even turn around. Right? Like,
yeah. The thing that I was going to say is, like, you know, speaking of sort of like the Hitchcock stuff and ratcheting up the tension, one of the things that struck me watching OG Halloween again for the first time in a long time is basically how small the movie actually is. Like, basically from the time when the action like starts, when like the real stuff begins, it's basically just two houses across the street from one another for like the last like 2/3 of the movie. And I just thought that didn't really strike me the first time. I could very much see like this entire thing almost being remade as
the only other
a play. Yeah.
The only other set piece is, you know, the asylum, which you really only see a sign in a road, right? Like, by the way, that scene was bonkers. I was like, that's actually really creepy. Pulling up on an asylum and you see, you know, 4 or 5 inmates just wandering the woods like deer. No, thank you.
That's maybe like a good like segue for me to just like give plenty of all my shouts out that I can to Loomis. Like, the man is like the beating heart of the first movie. Just like all his lines, he's just over the top, and you can just imagine like the sheriff and everyone who talks. He's like who talks like this? Like, what is going on with you, buddy? Like, who talks like this in everyday conversation?
What I said to Jesse is, I don't know how you write this character. It's amazing to me. But it's like exposition man, right? He shows up and he's like, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, but you're going to listen to me and you're going to love it because I'm British, right? Like, and it's amazing. But like, if he didn't exist, we'd be completely lost in the movie. We'd have no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who like adds all the layers of menace to like Michael Myers, you know, with just his little like speeches without having to have like a whole like attempt at this childhood thing. But you just wonder, like, the way that the nurse who's driving the car is like so dismissive of him on everything. Is like, is he just like talk like this to everyone all the time? Is he's like, the other patient is also like, evil has been unleashed, you know, once again. He's like, no, the dog will be back, it's fine, or whatever the story is.
I think it's important to note that what Carpenter does through Loomis and his expositories in 5 minutes takes Zombie 43 minutes to do, right? And
I'm celebrating it, to be clear. I'm just saying.
No, for sure. But also, Loomis has no patience for anyone. So he's going to call, I mean, he's spent 15 years with the kid growing up. He knows what he is. And so he doesn't have time to explain all of that to everyone. He's like, no, you got to trust me. It's fucking evil. I'm going to call it. I'm not going to call him or they or anything, right? And also the poor nurse, you know, she's just doing a job, you know, and chain smoking parliaments, P-funks, which I have to appreciate, in the car with the windows up while it's raining.
She's got this creep feeling her head up from the top of the fucking car.
From the car. There were a couple other things I did want to read. There was, you know, when I prep for this, like pulling the curtain back, you know, I do all the reading, all the places we get from IMDb or Wikipedia, Reddit threads. I watch short films on YouTube. I'm doing books, whatever.
I can read
from all the places. But there was a Reddit post that I thought was interesting. It's a little lengthy, but I wanted to read it because there's no access to the movie, and I think that's what sets it apart from every slasher that followed. It's closer to a Hitchcock thriller than Friday the 13th. Carpenter brings a horror monster right into the heart of the American neighborhood, far away from the Gothic castles and isolated forests or deserts that took up the bulk of the genre in previous decades. The 70s brought an end to America's post-war economic prosperity as the country turned toward neoliberalism to combat inflation. It started to eat at the minimal safety net the government provided, essentially pulling up the ladder to anyone who didn't own property. In response, homeowners were overwhelmed by a sense of dread, fearing that they themselves might be swallowed up in the underclass. It's no surprise that this was the period when serial killers, crazed religious cults, and senseless acts of violence started to become regular nightly news. The movie plays on these suburban fears, with Myers being a relentless manifestation of those anxieties. You're not safe even in your quaint little neighborhood, but it's also why the scary scene doesn't involve Mike Myers at all, really. When Lori's running for the door screaming for help, one of her neighbors peers out the window, sees her desperation, and closes the blinds to shut her out. Suburban community is a lie, and your neighbors wouldn't even care if you died. So I thought that really nicely encapsulated all of the fears that were manifested and played out in this movie and why it works on so many levels, where Zombies version just absolutely fails on so many levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't
know if I don't know where this would fit in. It's not a theme per se, but I have like 4 instances of just sort of like comically clumsy and bad filmmaking from the 2007 one.
Before I want you to do that, but my last thing on at least themes for general discussion, I'm done. Then you can do your thing. We're all Gen Xers here, right? I think Sled, you might be a little young. Are you Gen X?
What's your birth year?
I'm a Zennial, 1980.
Yeah, right on the button.
I'm on the cusp.
Well, as otherwise all Gen Xers, dude, this movie is so Gen X latchkey kid shit.
Yeah.
The kids just, the parents, this is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
Outside of seeing Lori's dad for 3 seconds where he's like, drop this key off down the street, I'm fucking out of here. Parents are gone. Parents don't exist in this movie. Even Sheriff Brackett, Annie's dad, is like, oh, there's a serial killer on the fucking loose, broke out of the asylum. Not even going to tell Annie. Fucking forget it.
The only adult is Loomis. That's it.
Loomis, right? And he's basically Captain Ahab in search of his white whale. He doesn't give a fuck. He's a monomaniacal crazy person. He's just going to go after that. He didn't give a shit.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. The like absolute bedlam that the kids are allowed to get into.
Yes.
Hey, we're going to go babysit. Why don't I actually take the kid that I'm babysitting
and put him in your house? Dude, as a parent,
you sleep. Well, I go fuck in the parents' bed.
That's right. Jazz, the balls. Can you imagine if you come back and your fucking boy
exactly
is in
what
house?
I wrote down in my notes. I was like, come back into my house. My kid's gone, and you're fucking in my bed, drinking beers, smoking a cigarette. Mike Myers doesn't have to show up. You're dead. You're fucking dead.
No, the first question I'd ask is how old the girl is.
Hey! So I thought the Gen X, I thought that resonated a lot. With us. All right, go ahead, Jazz. What do you got?
So I mean, the ones that I have are, and we'll get to the truck stop or the truck car wash scene or whatever.
Joe Grizzly, bitch.
After his scene with Joe Grizzly, when he somehow takes Joe, the clothes, and then he leaves the bathroom and they cut the scene, and the implication is, did he kill everyone else too, or did they not notice that was no longer Joe Grizzly when he like took the truck, or what exactly happened from there?
I can kind of speak to unfortunately a little bit of this here because my dad for many years worked the night shift. Okay, and so I would Sunshine Produce,
right.
And I would work summers and winter breaks a lot with him overnight, and you would drive to the market in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, and there was a whole like night breed of people, and they give no fucks about anyone else. I could have set myself on fire and walked out of there, and no one would look up from what they were doing. I feel like at a truck stop in the middle of the night, guys just go in there and take a shit and get a bag of pork rinds and get out of there. No one knows
but they're washing the truck at the same time. Right?
He didn't walk out and drive the truck. He put the suit on and walked out somewhere else. And then 20 minutes later, they walked into the bathroom and someone found Joe Grizzly shitting his pants and bloodied and dead. But like,
by the way, this is the 3rd movie with Ken Foray that we have reviewed. We might need to change the name of the podcast. doing his movie.
We should be so lucky. We should be so lucky. Jazz, what else? I know you got more.
And the other one I have, just because I think this was like a really messed up attempt at like homage or whatever he was trying to do. So the sleazeball boyfriend of his sister, like brings the mask, for some reason.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, which one? What are we? OG or Zombie?
No. The sleazeball.
William
of 2007.
No,
this is all 2007.
No, the young guy who brings the mask. Right, and he's like,
Oh,
hold on,
okay.
I got to show you something. Right.
Yeah. The I think Steve is maybe his name or something like that. I don't know. Judah's boyfriend.
Sounds right.
Yeah. And but basically he brings the mask, and when little Mike goes up to stab his sister, he takes the mask. And I don't know what we're supposed to feel, but it's this giant adult head, and I don't know if it's meant to look menacing. It just I laughed out loud. It just like rings pathetic. It was really just sort of like dumb filmmaking.
It's crazy, and I had the same thought. And I listened one of the podcasts I listened to said the same thing. It was like you should not have done that. It looks funny. Doesn't look.
It makes no sense.
The original thing was they were going to have Mike Myers have a clown mask, the plastic clown mask that the kid has with the red hair on curly hair on top, and the clown. They were going to have that be the actual mask to use, and they changed at the last moment. And I think at this point, everyone knows that the Mike Myers mask that was used was made for a couple bucks. The guy who did the costumes. What's his name? God, you gotta know his name. Wallace. Anyways, he bought a Captain Kirk mask. And like widened the eye holes a little bit, spray painted it white, and that was it. And they just went with that.
Yeah, it was just a Shatner mask.
Actually, Shatner sued them years later in a civil suit for using his likeness, and he won, and they had to pay him out. But guess what? They had terrible lawyers because he didn't know it was a Shatner mask, or it was a Kirk mask, not a William Shatner mask, and he didn't own the rights to Shatner, so he should have lost the lawsuit. Anyways, I think he donated to charity or some shit, but so that was the story of the mask. Yes, stuff. It looks silly.
I think that's I think the OG. I think that's what makes the OG like so OG, right? Is like just what they used. It's like they used whatever they had around the house for like.
It was DIY. Yeah.
And it was
Laurie Strode. There was no costume, Jeannie.
Yeah.
Laurie Strode went to.
She had to buy her own stuff.
Jamie Lee Curtis went to. She went to J.C. Penney, I think, or Sears, or one of the two. Yeah.
It was J.C. Penney.
It was J.C. Penney, for $100, and had her own. That was it. This is what we're wearing.
Yeah. Just the last one is not as good as the silliness of the mask, but the entire lead up to when Michael Myers shows up in the town to the 2007 one, no one ever says anything about Halloween. They don't mention it's Halloween. There's no indication that it's Halloween. Just all of a sudden it's like Halloween. Whereas in the original, it's just like the entire ambiance of the movie is like Halloween shit, right?
Yeah.
And in the last one is like, oh, all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's make it Halloween too. And it just, it's just this kind of like lazy shortcut where he's like trying to hit these big beats and not actually thinking how the movie actually sticks together at all. Just seems to be his whole deal. Yeah.
I'll make you feel a little bit better. His Halloween 2 is worse.
I was texting with Jesse, just I didn't want to blow too much, but just like, what is considered his best or worst. And I looked it up after like ranking of Rob Zombie movies, and
Lords of Salem Halloween is not bad. Yeah.
Halloween remake, the 2007, is listed relatively high, like in terms of the goodness of the zombie movies. And that just absolutely terrifies me as like a human being, as an American citizen.
I was saying this to Jesse when we were off air a little, that I think it was just a little while ago, that Lords of Salem is okay, and part of what I think is wrong with Halloween, like his version of Halloween, is he loves to shoehorn his wife into scenes, right? Like, we didn't need the stripper scene, right? We didn't need it. Right.
Well,
it's not that she's one quick second. Yeah. It's not that she's a bad actress. She's fine, right? She does fine. She's the lead for Lords of Salem, but have a vehicle for her if she's going to be the actress. Like, I don't think you need to force it. Sorry, what were you going to say, Jess?
No, I mean, we actually talked about that earlier too. So in the OG Halloween, when they're in the car about to go pick Myers up to transfer him or take him before the judge, and she's smoking the cigarette, right? And she's lighting it with the mat. The Book of Matches says Rabbit and Red Lounge. It's a little which Loomis like looks at and the camera focuses on. Later in the OG, when Loomis is on the side of the road making the phone call, and then he notices that pickup truck, the mechanic's pickup truck on the side, and he knows that that's Myers had gotten to him, and he sees the Book of Matches there. So there's a reason for that, right? Zombie picks up on the Rabbit and Red Lounge and turns it into a strip club where Deborah Myers, Michael's mom, works.
Right. To give it a backstory.
Yeah, to paint some backstory. To me, that's sort of a Tarantino thing, and I don't mind it. I think it's fine if you're going to do that. At least he's
Well,
not
it
doing
also
the
just
beat for
fucks up
beat.
the whole character. He's
No,
supposed to be unpredictable evil. There's not supposed to be an
Right.
explanation. You created this whole thing where you like there's no explanation for this person, but now you're spending a whole half a movie explaining them.
Yeah,
And
that was
Explain it in the most obvious way, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, yeah, no shit, duh, right? Of
yeah,
course.
your
Or like
mom's a
the-
stripper, your
More
dad's
interesting,
gone.
like,
Yeah,
if they found out he had an ancestor who was like used to be a serial killer back in the day,
Yeah.
beforehand, and it's
It-
gene, like the bad seed kind of thing.
so
if I lived with William Forsythe, I guarantee you I would kill someone. Right? Like,
why is this kid so goddamn unresilient? That's what I want to understand.
Hey, speaking of Sled, you know why? Sled, you know why? You know why? Because Zombies version takes place. We'll get into the numbers.
Oh, maybe it's about the generational. You're talking about Gen X and millennials.
That's right.
This is a Gen Z
That's
kid.
right. That's right.
Bitch
Soft.
ass motherfucker. Couldn't even handle his stripper mom.
All right.
And just couldn't get it together.
And
and
his
just
alcoholic
started,
stepdad. Like, that's standard operating procedure. All right, let me get.
And then he went way over the top because he was getting bullied a little bit and started killing people.
Well, in fairness, who hasn't?
And then
somehow
grew into a goddamn acromegaleic giant eating fucking hospital food.
All right.
How you take this little kid? This little kid wasn't a fucking ogre. Wasn't like kid like. And all of a sudden he's a giant, and he's been working out. Why is he so fucking strong? Beating the shit out of everybody.
He's in the joint. He's doing push-ups and. All right,
he's not. He's staring at the wall, looking through it,
through the wall.
Whatever the fuck he was saying.
The evil is gone.
Shit.
All right.
Making masks.
All right, look. The last thing, and then we're gonna move to the next segment. That's good on general discussion here. Total body count 22. 20 in the director's cut for the 07 zombie version. And then for the OG one, I think it's a count of 4, 5 if you count.
I think it's 5. Yeah.
Well, 5
is
five is counting the mechanic. Who's off screen, and then the 7 if you count 2 dogs who died apparently, but I don't count them as body.
Those count as like 10 each. I mean, those are sadder than the people.
3/5? No. All right.
All right. Jesus.
So, all right. Let's go to favorite kill or favorite scene. I'm gonna go ahead and drop mine first, and we can free for all after that. Halloween, OG Halloween. My favorite is absolutely Loomis and the nurse in the car en route to pick up Michael. For me, that scene, it's dark, it's raining, the windows are rolled up, she's chain smoking, it's intimate, it's raw, it's real. Pleasant in real life, of course, hammered, drunk out of his head for that 2 bottles of wine deep. Carpenter was concerned he wouldn't be able to shoot the fucking scene, and he nails it.
Loomis?
The man's a fraud.
Yeah, Pleasance.
So
in real life.
he's like the Robert Shaw of Halloween.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's what he said. It's his Jaws. It's Jaws.
It really
I know.
is.
That's why you made you think of it. You saying that.
So he nails it in a take. Plus, you got the Rabbit and Red Lounge matchbook that I said that comes back later. Nice Easter egg. It's foreboding. The dialogue to Loomis is just like that Ahab, chasing the white whale, and he's so fucking dismissive of her. She's just like, are you sure we should call him instead of it? He's like, whatever. She's like, then why are we doing any of this? He's like, it's the law. He's just fucking, he's on the mission. That to me, that's my favorite scene. For the Halloween 07, which, I didn't have a favorite scene or a favorite kill, but if you push me, I'd say the ending would suffice for me. When Lori they fall off the balcony together. She ends up on top of Michael, straddling him. She shoots him with the gun. She's screaming. The scene ends abruptly after the gunshot. Like, that worked for me, for whatever that's worth. What'd you guys have?
I think in the
Favorite scene, favorite kill, anything
original one, TJ Souls' character.
She's great. Linda,
that was right. With the bed, with the headstone. First of all, how did he lug that up there?
Yeah, how did he dig up the?
I thought about that too. That thing's gonna weigh 100 pounds.
That's the one thing about
280. So
that's the one thing about the original that is tough. Like the whole Rube Goldberg machine he builds with the other guys sitting down. It's like, when did you set this up? He's like, he took a little mechanical engineering course.
That's actually one of my commentaries about movies like this that always bother me is like where the villains putatively natural.
Right.
And it annoys me when they do supernatural, like unexplained things.
Well,
Sure.
is Michael Myers I mean, this goes into Voorhees territory.
Well, I guess
right?
yeah. I mean, I guess.
Can he be
but
killed? He is supernatural, right?
I think by the
They
time you
tread
hit
the line at
second
the end,
one,
right?
Yeah, by the time you hit the second one, I think you're like, okay, this is not a person. But so
Yeah.
whose turn is it now? Can I go?
Yeah,
Anyone.
go for it. What do you got?
All right. So my favorite for 78, I'll do favorite kill, is the boyfriend who gets pinned up against the door.
Bob.
That is a great scene. And the way he looks at him like a dog, like he turns his head to the side. Like
So
he's
it's funny.
curious. Like,
It's funny that you say that because
that.
the direction from Carpenter for that specific scene, he told it wasn't Tony Moran. Who's the other one who did it? Moran
have to
plays
go
him for
look.
like 5 seconds. Nick
Castle.
Castle. He tells Castle, look at him like you would look at a butterfly collection.
Right.
And that's what he did. And that was the direction that Castle
It's
got
so good.
most of the time was he's like, I want you to walk over here and do this. And he's like, well, like, what is my motivation? What am I doing? Like, how am I supposed to? And he goes,
Just
He didn't
do
want him
this.
to act.
no, he goes, see
He's
that
like,
mark
"Don't
on
act."
the floor? See that mark over there? Walk from that mark to that mark. That's your direction. And it works,
It's so good, and the like you said, the I didn't know the thing about the butterfly collection, but that makes a lot of sense, and that sense of curiosity and like, look at that, like, is great to me. And then the only scene that I really think is pretty great is the truck stop bathroom fight.
Let's go.
Is great.
I was
with
rooting
Big
so
Ken.
hard for fucking Big Joe Grizzly.
Oh, just kill him, right? Like,
Yeah.
just
They
don't
started.
let the movie happen.
What'd you say,
Yeah.
Sled? What'd you say, Sled?
But I don't want to preempt Joel what he's
okay.
saying.
All right. Okay. All right.
No, that was it. I'm done.
Yeah. All right.
Next.
Who else? Jazz, Sled.
Sure. Well, I had the same favorite kill for OG Halloween as Joel did. So I'll just very quickly say my favorite kill from 2007 is when the mom kills herself. Just because that way I didn't have to see her terrible acting for the rest of the movie.
How
and
dare
just,
you?
like, not
Sharon
deal
Moon
with that.
Zappa has been the star in every single movie that Rob Zombie's directed. And
Yeah,
by the
right.
way,
what a surprise!
Right.
Because that's the only role she can get.
Unbelievable.
Because
too,
no
to
one will
make
hire
that
her
person-
dumbass otherwise.
Wouldn't she have just had an abortion? Like, what's the likelihood that she even has that kid in the
Yeah,
first
why
place?
is she even having so many kids in the first place? Wrap it up.
Kid was born in
Shouldn't be
the.
bringing kids
when-
into this
what-
environment.
how old
are
was
you
that
are
kid?
y'all really asking Sled, you particularly, you really asking why poor rednecks are having so many kids? Is that what we're talking about here? They do. That's what they do.
We're just saying who's the real villain of the
He
movie.
was a stripper.
Yeah, so she's gonna have 3 kids.
He'd have aborted that kid. That's fucking job
Who's the
issue
real
right there.
villain?
All right, Sled, what do you got?
All right. No, were you done, Jay?
I am.
Oh,
For now.
okay. So my favorite kill scene in Halloween is actually when Annie gets strangled in the car.
Oh yeah.
I thought that scene was very just the vibe. And again, getting back to the noises that are
Paul.
going on, the noises he's making and the struggle she's going through is very visceral feeling. Like it felt like they were fighting. They tried to replicate it a bit with was that Linda that got choked by the phone?
Yes. Yeah.
So they tried to replicate it a bit with that, but the one in the car, I thought they actually did a great job of this person seeming like they were fighting for their life and dying. I mean, they kind of ended on a little bit of schlock where they got like mushed up against the window.
Yeah,
with their
she gives a weird
face
look when
open,
she finally does.
but the
yeah.
way that the kill of it, I thought,
it goes
was
on for
done
an extra
really-
10 seconds.
yeah, like it definitely got in your guts a bit, is what I felt like.
Her song that she sings before then is awesome. I love that. The Oh Paul, she's doing her own song. She just made that up on the cuff. And so did Jamie Lee Curtis for her weird love song that she kept singing. Just the two of us, that one. They've just made those songs up on the fly for some reason. So yeah. All right, go ahead, Slade.
But, and then my 2007, Joel touched on it a bit, was Joe Grizzly. I thought Joe Grizzly went out like a man.
He did.
Um,
He
That
did.
guy rules.
Goddamn right.
I think,
Ready for
honestly,
the quotes.
you know what I think would have been cooler?
Wait
would
for the
be
quotes. That's right, Jazz.
If Joe Grizzly had kind of like whooped his ass and Michael Myers had to retreat.
Yeah,
It would have made the movie so much better.
You
It would have
can't-
made it better. Oh, it would have been better.
Slade, as a pro wrestling guy, you can't make your heel look weak. You can't do that, man. You can't make that monster heel look weak, dude.
I mean,
I don't know.
to me, like Joe Grizzly also seems like a guy who, when he needs to, will fight dirty. So I just imagine like he gets into
He would have
shit and
started
tries-
stabbing that guy right away.
Well, yeah,
Hit him
exactly.
with the top of the toilet
I mean, this
seat.
is a guy who would just have like glitter in his pocket to like throw in the guy's face and like hot sauce to like spit out at him and shit like that. This is what I expect out of Joe Grizzly. What the fuck, Ken Foree?
There was no
You're
nut
not
shots.
much.
You don't
I
think
bet
Joe
you.
Grizzly
I
was
bet
doing-
you Ken Foree had that, and Rob Zombie made him cut it.
Yeah, he
He's
made
an
him.
idiot.
He's like, we can't have you kind of winning in this.
You can't
know.
throw
Forey-
glitter in Michael Myers'
Corey's
face.
scenes were the only scenes of that movie that I liked. I mean,
I agree.
Joe
Dude, when he
Grizzly
gets- let me tell
was
you something.
fantastic.
When Joe Grizzly jumps down from his cab and he's dangling that long unlit
Oh, man.
100 cigarette, out of his mouth, like probably a Newport or a Salem 100, and it's not lit yet, but he's talking already and it's sort of bobbing up and down. And he's like, I'm Joe Grizzly is back. And then he's like, and then what does he say? And like Tom Sawyer by Rush is playing in the background. I'm just going nuts. I'm just like, this is it. This is all I need.
I know, and like even just like when he's looking at himself in the mirror and he's just like looking, he goes, "God damn." It's just like I love it.
What an amazing character actor.
That does lead. Sled, I'm sorry, are you done? I don't want to. You're still going.
I mean, I don't know. They did position. I mean, it felt obvious to me they positioned his. I mean, that guy's. He's a big Ken Foree's a big guy.
Yeah.
Like obviously, he's a big guy, and so that's why he was able to take his clothes and wear them. So, I guess that was the plot line. But I don't know. They could have done more with that. I think that would have been more fun than what it was.
Yeah, where's the Joe Grizzly spinoff?
Well, let's go ahead. Dude, I could do a Joe Grizzly prequel to that, man. I want to know him driving the roads. You know what? I feel like driving that truck. God damn it. I really want to move on to the next
Let's
segment.
get Mike Flanagan on this.
but
Make
Joe-
a seven
but Joe Grizzly-
episode prestige Netflix series.
But Joe Grizzly driving that truck, do you know where he ends up? He probably beats Lincoln Hawk in the finals in over the top of the arm wrestling competition for truck drivers. He would smud stomp a hole in it and walk it dry. He absolutely would.
No.
He's got a competition with Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China.
Him dry. Doesn't even stand a chance.
All right, next segment. Best quotes, best quotes, bets lines. We got Halloween, we got OG Halloween. I mean, we should go right to it then for the zombie Halloween. Let me introduce myself. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch. I'm gonna cut that goddamn mask right off your face.
Go Grizzly or whatever.
Get that face leather, bitch.
Get that face leather, bitch.
I mean, let me. I got more.
Yeah, go ahead,
I mean,
Jazz.
everything
Go ahead,
that motherfucker said is me.
Go
Hey,
ahead.
buddy, just to give you a heads up, I got a Taco Supreme talking back at me, so I'm gonna be a while.
That is one of the greatest lines I've ever heard.
We're looking at like
love
we
that.
writ down the exact same shit.
Yeah. Okay, you do the
There's
next one. I
not a
don't.
lot in this movie.
Slide.
I mean,
Slide,
everything
you
he
got
says,
it.
I got the next one. Yeah.
Oh,
Jazz,
yeah,
do the next one. Jazz, do the next one. Do
Okay,
another
sure.
one.
He's like, look, brother, if you're looking for some kind of action, you better take it on the arches before I'm
Take
done
it on
dropping
the
this
arches.
load, or you're gonna be one sorry a-hole. Take it on the arches. That's gonna be part of my everyday
dude.
conversation.
Dude, are you kidding me? Take it on the arches, you bad motherfucker. God, Ken Foree.
but then he's like,
All
okay,
of it,
you
though.
just hold on, Daisy. I got something for you. And that's
He pulls out a giant.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say,
I was
Jeannie?
just gonna say I like out of all the stuff he says, but he just doesn't say asshole. He just says a-hole.
He says, it's like he's restraining himself while he's taking a shit, looking at a porno mag with a machete in his pants. And he's like,
I
I don't want to
promised
curse.
my mama.
Yeah, I don't
promised my
say
mama.
asshole. I don't use that kind of. I use
It's like kids in
Quotes.
school who think they're cussing, but then they're like really
I
polite
got-
about it.
I got one that I thought was actually a throwaway line in zombie. There's not a lot of good zombie quotes. Like I think it's mostly Ken Foree knocking him down. But at some point in the cemetery, when Loomis is with Sid Haig, the cemetery worker, and he's trying to take him to the gravesite, and Haig is just like, he's talking with Loomis. He's like, yeah, I heard about that. I think that doctor wrote a book on it, like talking about the massacre. And he's like, fucking blood money. And Loomis just mumbles, yeah, I read that book. It's a masterpiece. And then he's just like, are we close to the grave?
It's Michael McDowell saying it. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's so under
it's a
his
masterpiece.
breath. It's really funny.
I hope he ad-libbed that shit.
He must have, because Zombie,
Yeah.
no way Zombie writes that.
No. Like one of my notes that I wrote, I think multiple times across this is I just feel bad for the actors. So hopefully they just snuck in a few things like that.
Yeah, I can see him doing that for the OG Halloween. Annie Brackett, the daughter of Sheriff Brackett. At some point when her and Lori and Linda are walking down the street, you know, Linda's got a cigarette and they're just talking shit. Which, by the way, all the women dialogue, Jeannie, I don't know how much this resonated with you, but that was all written by Deborah Hill. All the other male dialogue, not women only, was written by Carpenter. And so she wanted to reflect what she had been
They
hearing.
were dating at the time, is that right?
Yes, they were. Yeah, they were dating at the time.
I'm not
but
sure
anyway,
it passes the Bechdel test though.
Ooh. Wait, what is that again? I remember
That's
what
the
that
one where two women have to have a conversation with no other men and not talking about a man.
Right. Which I feel like
are they talking about Ben? They are. They're talking about Ben Tramer. They're talking about all the dudes that they want to talk about.
I also appreciate, despite that though, like they're also talking about sex, right? Which is not normally they wouldn't be portrayed like that, right? It's usually the boys that would be pushing for it, and they're like demure, but they're like, no, I'll, you know.
Right, let me make this happen. You get him over here, right? Wait, which actually, go ahead, Slug.
No.
Well, so anyways, God, I lost my train of thought. So they're walking down the street doing that, and then Michael Myers fucking drives by in the car, and they're like, "Is that Ben Tramer or is that whoever?" He slams his brakes on when she says something. She says like, "Speed kills, loser," or some shit like that. And he slams the brakes on, right? And then they freeze for a second, and then he drives off. And Annie just looks at them and she's like, I hate a guy with a car and no sense of humor. Very specific. What is she talking about?
A specific ex-boyfriend. Like that's the only thing.
Or maybe just like if a high school guy thinks if he has a car, he can just behave however he wants back in those days or something.
No idea. Terrible.
I also just love, now that you mention it, I just think it's hilarious that, you know, Michael Myers has been killing people left and right and he's stalking and whatever. And then someone's like, say, hey, loser. And he's like, it's like, the fuck did she just say to me? So that's the way to slam on the brakes for.
That's where he was like,
he draws the line.
Nobody calls me a loser.
Last quote for me, which is Loomis, which is what I screamed at the beginning.
Yeah.
As soon as he breaks out and they're left in the rain, him and Loomis and the nurse, and Myers jumps in the car and drives off. He's gone. He's gone from here. The evil is gone. I fucking love that. Pleasant. He makes the movie.
Pretty much all the Loomis lines are the ones I have for the OG. Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
And he's Loomis has all the best. Yeah, like I was like trying to pick something from his stuff was all there. It was all him. I mean, I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding in even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, or good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. Like, but it's like,
so
when he hears it, like,
it's so good.
And now that you mention it and have made the Jaws analogies, it sounds so much like Quint's.
So much.
You ever seen it like the shark's eyes, the black eyes?
He should be dragging his nails down a chalkboard in the back of the room and then doing that.
I'll tell you what the difference is. No knock on Quint, but he got hammered for that monologue he was supposed to give on the boat that night and absolutely bombed it. And they were very concerned about that. And he came back the next day dead sober and reshot it and hit it. Donald Pleasance, 2 bottles deep of wine. One take Jake, baby. One take Jake. No problems there. You know why? I looked up with Donald Loomis, legit tough guy. You talk about Charles Bronson, those guys. This guy fucking, first of all, World War II was like a conscientious objector ready to go to jail. And then, God, what did they do? They did something. They fucked up England somehow. And he was like, oh, really?
Probably the bombing of London.
Lovelock bombed London.
Yeah, that's correct. And then he was like, all right, no, forget that. No, I'm in. Get me. Conscripted, jumps in. He's a World War II bomber, gets shot down and does fucking and it is a prisoner of war and gets out. That guy's a hardened dude, man. And by the way,
Not only that, but he then played a prisoner of war in The Great Escape.
Great Escape. And that's what which is one of my favorite movies. And a lot of the guys in The Great Escape, Bronson being one of them, are like World War II vets.
Legit,
and like,
dude.
they're all tough as shit.
Yeah.
I also read, though, that he produced and acted in many plays for the entertainment of his fellow captives while he was a prisoner of war. So it sounds like it wasn't that bad.
That's great.
All right, do we have any more quotes? Or are we moving on, guys?
I think you can move on.
All right. Well, let's see, we got trivia and tidbits here. We got plenty to go on. Does anyone want to kick it off or anything they took note of?
Go for it.
Holy shit, everyone's quiet. This is crazy. Jeez.
I feel like we talked about some trivia and tidbits.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of it. So, child Michael Myers in the OG Mike Myers and the OG Halloween, when he is walking through the house in that first long shot in the house, right? He gets the knife. You can see his hands. That's actually Deborah Hill. The child actor who was supposed to play him was like late or was only available for the final day of filming. So that's why if you really look closely, this little child, which is not a child, it's a young lady, has very nicely manicured nails and hands. It's Deborah Hill doing that. She also, for one day, played Mike Myers just for one scene. There were like 5 different people who played Mike Myers. It was mostly Tony Moran and Nick, what's his name? Nick Castle.
Castle.
But there were a couple other people who played him as well. Let me think of some other ones here. A lot of direct nods to Hitchcock, like I said, very heavily influenced. Before shooting the film, John Carpenter cinematographer Dean Cundy viewed Chinatown, right, the famous Nicholson vehicle. They were so impressed by the movie's cinematography that they decided to duplicate the color palette, which was mostly burnt orange for the day shots, coupled with blue-black lighting for the night shots, and the use of lighting for the fictitious town of Haddonfield and the overall look of the film. Now, Haddonfield, of course, it's set in a fictional Haddonfield, Illinois, but it is actually Haddonfield was a real town in New Jersey, which, of course, is where Deborah Hill is from. So it was a nod to that. Carpenter went to Bowling Green in Western Kentucky. So there were a lot of nods to Kentucky in the street names were actually places in Kentucky. And there were a couple other things to Kentucky that I can't recall off the top of my head, but there were, so he was doing a lot of that. Michael Myers, the actual naming of the killer, was a guy who worked on the set of, oh shit. He was like a production guy. He was a producer for one of the other movies, and Carpenter's just like, I'll just name him Michael Myers as a guy who I remember. And the guy's like, thanks a lot. Like, this fucking sucks now. The rest of my life, I'm identified with this like psychopathic killer doing that. So Carpenter did funny stuff like that, especially with a lot of his characters. He just like named them after random people who he knew in his personal life. So let me think. God, I can't believe I didn't write a lot of these down. So actually in the screenplay for the OG Halloween, Myers is only referenced by name twice in the film, if you think about it. The rest of the time, especially in the script, he's referenced as the Shape, which is a reference to the Salem witch trials, where judges used to describe these specters or these spirits, these ghosts, whatever, of the accused doing mischief or causing harm to another person. They would just refer to them as the Shape. And so that sort of lends itself to the mythology of Mike Myers. He was this faceless, nameless, absent, this like empty spirit. He was just like the Shape. So I think that was really cool with the mythology building for him, especially since Zombie goes to great lengths to tear that down and explain everything away, which sort of runs contra to what was intended by Carpenter. I can go on more. Does anyone have other stuff?
I think you can go. I think
shit. All right.
We hit a bunch of the stuff earlier that other folks had,
so
I feel like.
In Zombie's version, in one of the early scenes, so they're watching, there's a lot of, they show a lot of the movies that the kids are watching on TV on Halloween night. So for zombies, he has the kids watching the 1932 film White Zombie playing on TV. Of course, Zombie, his band White Zombie, where the name comes from, gained his notoriety from that in the 90s. In the OG Halloween, they're watching
The Thing from Outer Space.
The Thing from Outer Space, which 3 years later, Carpenter makes The Thing, which is the remake of The Thing from Outer Space,
with the exact same font for the title in the movie that they used in the one they were.
Am I misremembering that Toby Hooper was going to direct The Thing, but he was doing something else, and Carpenter ended up doing it, or is that just like?
I'm not sure, but I know that Zombie he wanted to remake Texas Chainsaw, which is that's what he's obsessed with. That may be the Toby Hooper connection that you're thinking of.
Yeah,
so he wanted that, and they were like, we're not going to fund that. And he was all right. He settled for Halloween, and so he remade Halloween. But what he really wanted to do was
he also successfully fucked up his remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and called it a different name, right? What is it, Jesse? Devil's Rejects, or So
House of a Thousand Corpses. Maybe?
Which one is it?
It was House of a Thousand Corpses. House of a Thousand Corpses, which he basically did. Yeah, it's basically.
It's like an homage, but it's like beat for beat that it's just oh my god.
With him, it's very hard, and that's the problem with Zombie is well-intentioned, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. From everything I've read about him, he comes down right on all the right issues with him. But it's just like he's a fan who happened to be famous for other reasons musically, and has enough money in his pocket to at least partially self-fund these vehicles and these projects. And it's like, God damn, man, like you didn't have enough original shit. You just didn't have enough original shit. Like and so now you're just retreading stuff. Anyways, one of the other things from the OG.
That's why you become a producer instead of a director.
All. You could just slide over and be a producer.
You pay this guy to pay, or gal with the vision to like make the version that you want, and you have some creative control, but then you also get the fuck out of the way and let them do their thing.
But I think when you come from a music background, you're the lead singer, you're the guy who makes the band. You're not.
You made Astro Creep. You have to think that you could make.
Well, the last thing for tidbits was in the OG Halloween, toward the end, when Laurie Strode and Mike Myers fall off the balcony together, right? You'll see there's an abrupt cut there. That's because the actual stunt woman who did that was seriously injured, like gravely injured. And they were like, fuck, we can't show this now. So they just cut the whole thing. As soon as they start to fall off the balcony, you never see what happens. I don't remember.
Which version is this?
The OG version.
Oh, okay.
But that's all I had for trivia and tidbits. Let's go ahead and move on.
I will say that Kim Richards was in this movie, also from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she's the little girl.
I was going to mention her, and then I skipped her because her biography seems so awful.
It is.
That she would be excited to be mentioned even on this podcast. And maybe put it on her Wikipedia page.
Wait, Gina, which housewives?
Did you hear what Michael Sled said about me?
Wait, Gina, which housewives is she?
Beverly Hills, and I'm a huge Bravo
Beverly Hills.
person.
She was the little girl, right?
Yeah,
like on the
Her sister Kim was in Assault on Precinct 13. Her sister Kim was an actress. Yeah, she's a whole. I'm not a fan of her. I like her kind of in some way. Anyway. But I got a whole.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's real complicated. I'm a whole Bravo-holic on the Real Housewives and all that shit. So.
All right, Franklin Award, and then we'll move on to questions. At first, when I thought about
Paris
this,
Hilton is one of her nieces. I just remember that's a random tidbit.
Because her, Kim and Kyle Richards, their sister married Rick Hilton. Their sister is
quality.
Yeah.
Quality of celebrity that you're considering there.
Yes.
Let's move on to Franklin Award, which is the character we're actually rooting for to get murdered. At first, I didn't have one, but after watching Zombies 2007 reimagining, help me, but William Forsythe, Ronnie, the bad boyfriend, goddamn man, he just screamed the whole time. This awful hyperbolic caricature of what like a bad person is supposed to be. it was, and so in wrestling parlance, Sled, you'll know this. It's like there's good heat and bad heat. Bad heat is known as like go away heat, which means I'm booing you not because I want to see you again, I want to root against you, but because I never want to see you again. I never wanted to see Ronnie again in there. I was just glad not to have him on screen anymore. And it's crazy because William Forsythe, I love, like as an actor, so many movies. Raising Arizona, one of my favorites. But like the yelling,
Who killed Bobby Zuko?
yeah, who did Bobby Lupo? Anyways, and the yelling and the crazy person stuff works for him in Devil's Rejects and other stuff. But just like Zombie has no finesse as a director, and there's so many, like I said earlier, there's just so many other more effective, subtle ways to convey how Ronnie awful is as a human being, and they don't do it. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm glad he died, so I don't have to listen to him yell anymore. You guys have any Franklin Awards or no?
That's a pretty good one.
That's a pretty good
I-
one. I would agree.
Mine was.
I think that's the softest choice.
Yeah. All right, what do you got?
Mine. Well, I'll let Sled do what is
No,
sure to be
you
a banger.
go first. You go first. Yours will be better.
Okay, mine is basically in the 2007 Judith's boyfriend, Steve Haley. For just like I don't want to hear him talk. I don't want to imagine him on top of her. It's like the most disgusting. I feel so bad for that actress having to put up with that. And then on top of it all, he goes downstairs and like starts making a sandwich or eating just the ham right out of the deli wrapper. I'm just like, this has to end. And thankfully, Mike Myers took care of that.
Sled, I'm with you. I feel like if he had some good prosciutto or something, like, okay, go ahead, fucking hammer.
But that's not what it was. This isn't.
It reminds me of a story from 7th grade where I got in trouble with a friend's mom.
Deli ham from the white from like this has probably been in there.
It wasn't that bad. It was
over.
in the white butcher paper. It had to be decent. It wasn't like fucking
No. It's not. That's not the problem. The problem is it's been in there for 6 months. Now it's covered in that slime, that the deli meat gets.
Are we arguing about the quality of the prop ham?
We are.
I don't think it's an argument. I think it's known that's definitely gross. You saw what your house was like. You're going to eat ham for Netflix?
I feel like I'm with Sled here. Sled, get him. Let's go.
That commentary, unrelated to me, reminds me of a story from being stoned back in the day, over at a friend's house, and I went down. Apparently, I didn't find out till later, but I knew I was doing it when it happened. But I went down and went into his fridge because I was hungry. And I just found a block of cheese in there and just took a giant bite out of it. Just like and put it back in the fridge. And my friend was like, dude, like the next thing he's like, did you fucking just like take a bite out of it? This is at his parents' house. She's fucking, I was like, yeah. He's like, my mom, she's like, he's like, dude, there's like teeth mark. Like you can see your teeth where
Sled
that means they can tie you to the crime, Sled.
Sled one time he flew out here for some work stuff he had to take care of and stayed with me. First time we ever met in person, stays with me for a few nights at my house. And I don't remember what we were doing tonight. We were driving around somewhere and it's like, I'm hungry. Let's get something. We like stop by a grocery store and he buys a block of cheese. This is not a joke. This guy buys a block of cheese and just like meat and cheese. He is a forager. He is like a Neanderthal and he's just hammering blocks of cheese. I've seen him do it.
Just ingredients of food.
All right. So if we don't have any,
so my Franklin Award for the 2007 goes to Great Dag.
Great Dag.
Yeah. Fuck that kid. Like ugly little mutt. I just wanted him to fucking die. Looking at him.
He
just looks like he looked like he was trying so hard. I guess I should be more considerate, but his Wikipedia page makes me hate him more because he did become the rapper Great Dag much after this movie. But yeah, it's just whole vibe. It's like, this kid's supposed to be a bully. I'd have kicked this kid's ass all over the fucking playground. I would have shoved that shovel up his fucking ass when he tried to get me out of the woods. So yeah, fuck Great Dag. I didn't like him. And adult Michael Myers sucked ass too. Worst. Tyler, they fucked up so bad by taking it from a normal looking guy who is just dangerous to, he's a giant, I don't know.
So Jesse,
non-syllabic idiot who just smashes everybody up, has nothing interesting about him.
So Saskatchewan is now off the tour list.
We cannot
We
go to
can't- we
Saskatchewan
can't
now.
go
We're
to
gonna get fucking
Saskatchewan.
jumped when we go there.
By that
All right,
monster.
let's move on to questions here. So these can be continuity issues. They can be, hypothetical, theoretical, whatever.
We touched on a few. I mean, like mine were all about like I mean, I'm not going to get into zombie ones, but the one I had was all about like how did Michael Myers set up the tombstone? Like, I don't know how that happened.
Logistically,
So, but
That's
is
the
it supposed to
first
got
one or
a
the
system of
sequel?
pulleys and levies?
The
I don't
remake.
the
fucking
first
know.
one, yeah, it's like
You say
moving
pulleys
the
and
piano.
levies?
Levers,
Levers,
not
pardon me.
levies.
Can I say I have a question that actually I don't know if anyone has an answer to, but it's a very specific question. In the OG Halloween, Loomis and Sheriff Brackett are upstairs in the Myers house, right? And they're having a conversation, and the window was broken as if a baseball or something was thrown through it in the midst of a very intense conversation. Do you remember this?
Yeah. But it was like, wasn't it like a street light?
It was like on a tether or something. It was like the ball was connected to something in the middle of the night, and they're talking. The window shatters. This ball comes through tied to something, and then they stop for a second. And Brackett's just like, "Oh, I think you're just scared, Loomis. Like you're not. It's not about Michael Myers. You're just fucking terrified of whatever."
Yeah,
but no
because
one
that was
explains
terrifying.
what
right?
was that? What happened? Does anyone have? Do you guys even remember that scene?
I don't even remember.
I absolutely
Dude,
remember
when you
it.
go back and watch it, a fucking baseball or something flies through and
Something.
it's tethered to something through a window while they're talking, and they acknowledge it for a half a second, and then they keep talking.
I thought it was like a street light swung down. That I mean, like, but it doesn't make any sense.
And
but that's
they
what
discuss
it looked
why
like
a street lamp just fell through the fucking window in the middle of the night. No one talks about
I agree
it.
with you. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
Jesus,
know.
all right, that was me. I mean, that was a real question I had. Also,
It's like
so Loomis and
go
the
ahead.
nurse are transforming evil incarnate from a minimum security psych ward before the judge in the middle of the night, and they have a 40-something-year-old chain-smoking nurse and a 60-something-year-old fucking washed-up psychiatrist in a station wagon. That's what we're doing security-wise for this. That's what we're doing? That's it?
Well, didn't they? I mean, I know that they mentioned the Thorazine in the courtroom, but I assumed that they would just like sort of pump him full of shit even when he was in the car.
We're not
Shrink
going
him
to
like he's a rhinoceros.
I'm glad you mind. That was actually my favorite quote.
Yeah.
What do I give him when he take it in front of the judge? Thorazine. He'll barely be able to sit up. That's the idea. Like his lines are so like deadpan, like that whole thing.
You know, it's crazy. You know what's crazy, Sled? So again, I watched on YouTube. I was watching the uncut version. So there's an extra 15 minutes in there. There's a couple of different scenes in there that I guess you guys didn't get. One of them is before the board, the review board, which explains further what's going on in between his time at the psych ward versus why they're going to pick him up that night, which is he sits down and they say, you know, at the age of 21, when he turns 21, you have to bring him before the judge. He's going to be sentenced to a real prison sentence at this point, right? And in the interim, you can continue seeing him and continue therapy, or we can sub someone else in if you're not up for it anymore. And Loomis wants to stick with it and talk to him or whatever. So that whole thing goes down, which is why they're in the car driving there. It's his 21st birthday. It's 15 years later. You know, they're going to have to transfer him now before the judge, which is why he says it's the law. When she's like, why are we doing this? If this guy's a piece of shit and he's evil, why are we even bothering? And he's like, it's the law. Like, I have to do it. And then there's another scene that was cut after he breaks out of the psych ward the next morning. Loomis is going through the psych ward and they're walking him through shit. He's supposed to meet with some of the doctors there, and they take him to the dorm room where Myers was held before he broke out. And of course it's all ransacked and the windows broken. And they explain how all of these patients got out, which is he breaks out of his room. He opens all the fucking doors and lets all of the other inmates out to create chaos as a camouflage to get himself out of there. And also on the backside of his dorm room, of his door, is painted like in fucking blood or something, sister. Just the word sister.
Do you think that any of this is why they had Billy Bibbit in the movie?
Wait, was Billy Bibbit in the movie? Or are you fucking
Billy Bibbit's the sheriff in 2007, right?
Is that right?
Yeah, I
From
mentioned
One
that.
Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Oh my god, I totally didn't even. Wow. I mean, zombies sometimes when you.
So Randall Patrick McMurphy escaped and started just killing people.
Shit, R.P. McMurphy. Anyway, so some of those were, and some of those things like Jeannie we talked about earlier, those scenes were filmed in part while they were filming part 2 to retrofit them in so they could have it on the TV version. But all right. Do we have any other? I have one big question for Zombies Halloween, which I want to get into now. We've been circling it the whole episode, but I'm going to get into it. Rob Zombie has this weird propensity for like a Quentin Tarantino thing. It's like, well, I'm not going to adhere to any strict timeline, and this is going to take place in my own universe where all these times overlap, and we don't know what the date or day is. So when does this take place? Let's see. One of Laurie Strode's friends, Linda, maybe I think, or Annie, is wearing a Slayer shirt, the Rain in Blood album. That album comes out in '86. But there are also flip phones, cell phones present. So that puts us at 0405. The original draft of the script, the first part took place in 78 and the second part 17 years later, which makes it 95. That doesn't add up because flip phones weren't available in 95. Zombies dialogue and pacing, blah, blah, blah. We have all this stuff. Jeannie, you got to this with the stringy hair and stuff. Okay. We've got people with long stringy hair. We've got black guys with afros, right? Ken Foree walks in with the afros and the fuck thing. The sartorial choices, the vernacular, the haircuts, the music, Blue Oyster Cult, Nazareth.
What's sartorial mean?
Like clothing, like accoutrements, like what garb.
I'm asking for other viewers.
Okay, right, yeah, for the dummies that
There's
listen.
there's a lot of listeners,
right.
and they don't got it.
Right, so all of this stuff crosscuts the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the aughts, right? Joel and I researched this. We finally came out with, I think it takes place in 2005, which is 15 years prior to 1990. They say he's 10 at 1990, and 15 years later is 2005 is when we're doing this. But nevertheless, we have fucking kick-ass Joe Grizzly with the fucking Jerry curl walking into the truck stop talking about take it on the heels, right? We have someone wearing a Slayer t-shirt. I've just had enough of this. It just is so self-indulgent. And Joel said this earlier in a conversation off the record before we got, it's like, Rob Zombie's doing a bit where he's just, everyone is Rob Zombie. Every actor, all the actors act the same. They all, I mean, by the way, Sid Haig, who is the cemetery worker, right? Who's just a regular schlub walking a person up who wants to see a certain grave. And he's like, these fucking pieces of shit, these some bitches, motherfuckers, titties, ass. I'm like, everyone doesn't talk that way. And everyone talks that way because Rob Zombie wants him to talk that way because he's obsessed with this dirtbag 1970s aesthetic that he imbues every character with and every scene with. And it's just like so self-indulgent. And it, on top of the stuff you guys have complained about ruining it, for me, it's like, you're ruining it now because you're just making it a fucking Rob Zombie video. And it's just like, enough.
Yeah.
Take that, Rob Zombie.
Take that. That's right.
That.
When Zombie listens to this,
taking you down a peg.
He's gonna be fucking.
I can see that. I think maybe you're attributing more intentional agency and consciousness about these decisions than maybe you're giving him too much. You're giving him too much credit. I'm giving him even less credit.
You're saying like he just like thinks he's doing a good job and it's just like
he just trips into it.
I think there's a lot of bad writers who do that with all their characters. Like every character they write is just like some shit version of them that they put
like. Why would Bob, who's shows up in a quintessential mystery van from Scooby-Doo in the 70s, and ostensibly and presumably what's 2005? Why does she show up in that? Why does his hair look that way? Why is he listening to Blue Oyster Cult? I didn't know. I mean, are we serious right now? Like that's what we're doing?
Yeah. Makes no sense.
It really doesn't. In my, exactly what Jesse was saying was that it's something about like, he likes people being like this scuzzy 70s style or whatever you want to call that. Right. And so he's like, I'm just going to have everybody be that way. Right.
It's not even just
choice.
It's not even just the 70s thing. I mean, it's basically just like he doesn't think of the movie as a coherent whole. He's just like, oh man, I think this would be cool. And then, oh man, I also think this would be cool. And he just does those things. And whether it makes sense that one thing follows another, or that they make sense as a whole is like utterly irrelevant to what.
And I
Yeah,
think
it's
you
just-
can get
it's a-
away with
which
that.
is just,
It's just a
like, you know, have like
Yeah.
basically like jack off into a cup of like his favorite things. It's just that's basically what he's doing. That's pretty
it's
much
just a
the deal.
pastiche. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think you can get away with it in a music video.
Yeah.
And that's probably where he kind of, got that style from, doing Dragula and Living Dead Girl and whatnot.
Well, the other problem was
3 minutes,
what was
but
his
it doesn't
first
work
movie?
for a
Was
whole
Halloween
movie.
2007 his first thing?
No, it wasn't,
no.
because his first one was House of a
House
Thousand
of Thousand
Corpses.
Okay.
Corpses is yours
Well,
before, yeah.
I mean, I think part of the other problem is no one stopped him when they had the chance.
Right.
And like
Right.
now he's like, I've gotten these many, like I'm a successful director. What
You're
am I going
telling
to
me he's
take
like
advice from
Thanos.
these
Because they made
rubes who
money
haven't done
too.
shit?
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
they made good money off this
Yeah.
movie.
They made pretty good
didn't
money,
like what'd you say, Joel? 4x on whatever they spent
Oh,
on
it
it.
was
I mean,
five.
it's like
It was
70
five,
million,
yeah.
80 million. So
80 million, yeah.
I just
Yeah.
thought
It's a lot of
it was-
money. I mean,
It was so just, yeah. Like I felt like I could call everything, right? It's like, oh, there's going to be
Yeah.
a stripper.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh,
yeah, it was
Right.
completely.
long-haired stringy guys. Oh,
Right.
we got rock
Yeah.
t-shirts.
There's
It
like
was
a
one of the
running
most
joke- there's a-
unnecessary movies I've ever seen. Like unnecessary.
unnecessary.
There's a
If I was
running
gonna
joke about
one word, I'd describe it as unnecessary.
There's a running joke about Sherry Moon Zappa, who's his wife, of course. And she's a lovely, beautiful woman, but like literally in every movie, there's a joke about like, when do we see her ass? Not if we see her ass, but at what point, what time mark do we see her ass? And you see it in the
Right.
Rabbit and Red Lounge, I don't know, 42 minutes.
there
in
is
or
no
whatever.
movie
Yeah.
that you don't.
Yeah.
And
As far as
by
I
the
know.
way, the music they were playing in the Rabbit Red Lounge was "Love Hurts." Was
Nazareth,
that meant
yeah.
to be a joke? Or
No, it's
what?
70s. He's obsessed. He basically
Yeah.
did. He ran back Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused soundtrack. It was like, I'll just repurpose this for my 2007 movie that's set in 2005. And
Such an imbecile.
I don't know. It
It's
feels
so
very. It
strange.
just feels very on the nose. I think maybe there was some intention to it, but it's so on the nose that it's just like, ugh.
it's tough. All right,
I
guys.
mean,
so
you
let's-
imagine telling Rob Zombie, "Oh, it's on the nose." He's like, "Well, where else would it be?
Right, right, he doesn't-
Everything's
yeah.
nose.
Yeah, you're not.
There's
yeah.
no other part to the face. It's just nose."
You're not going anywhere. You
The
guys,
whole face is nose.
you guys got anything else? Because I'm going to get us out of here for this.
One
No,
last
I'm good.
question to
Ah, Sled.
repeat
Yes, sir.
is how did Michael Myers get so goddamn big
Oh,
in the
God.
remake?
PDs,
Eating
baby,
the-
PDs. He was
eating
on
that
that
fucking-
bulletproof shit.
eating hospital food and
No.
staring at the fucking wall all day.
Yep.
It's a gland problem.
Yeah.
Like he might have got
It's
big, but he
great.
would have been able to do anything. Like, oh, he's a master competent also. Like he's fucking a tactical expert. He lures all the security guards in. He beats Big Joe Grizzly down, which seems really unrealistic to me. Also,
Well,
one
Joe
last
Grizzly
thing.
didn't use his most secret weapon.
One
which is
last
the
thing I
Taco
wanted to ask.
Supreme. That was
One
his
thought-
way out.
His
One
glitter.
thought
He
I
didn't have his
had-
pocket full of
One
glitter.
thought I had about Joe Grizzly was where he says, "I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch."
That's right.
Is that Tyler Mane played Sabretooth in the original X-Men, but he did not get included in any of the X-Men sequels. And I wondered this.
Yep.
So X-Men Last Stand
2000.
came out in 2006, and that's
Yeah.
the movie where Juggernaut says, "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch."
Mm.
I wondered if that was an
Ah.
intentional reference
that's a
to
deep
that
cut.
using
Maybe.
Tyler
It's
Mane's
possible.
character,
Yeah.
and then Tyler Mane fucks him up.
Yeah.
By
I
the
don't
way,
know.
we also forgot before I get us out of here with the outro here. We forgot one from the cast who definitely deserves mentioning. Our guy Danny Trejo also
yeah.
Yes.
is in there. We
He
forgot
does
about
show
him.
up, yeah.
Legit dude.
Well, he's the
Uh,
hardest working man in Hollywood. I mean, he's
Yeah.
got like 400 credits to his
I
name.
mean, my favorite Danny Trejo is Heat, but it's whatever. It's a take your choice. But all right, let's
Wait,
get it.
one.
Yeah, go
Just
ahead, Jess.
Jeannie, at one point you threw up Dag French's thing on a screen share.
No,
Did you
that
have something?
was Sled.
Oh,
Sled.
sorry.
Oh, okay.
That
He
was
was
great.
just
That was
I
great.
just like
Yeah,
the
that was great.
bangers. He
Dag.
just like listening to him.
I was going to show that face and ask how that could not be your Franklin Award. Just looking at that,
That's a
looking
good-
at that mug.
That's a good question. All right, let's get us out of here. Thanks again for joining us once again on Chopping It Up. We've already covered a couple of great goat horror villains in Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, but now It's time to give Mr. Freddy Krueger a run. We continue with yet another classic as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the original 1984 film, A Nightmare on Elm Street. We match that with A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors from 1987. Remember, if you have any questions or movie pairing suggestions, you can shoot us an email at choppingituphorrorpod@gmail.com. Again, that's choppingituphorrorpod@gmail.com. Or you can message us via Instagram at choppingituphorrorpod. We are up on all major streaming services, including Spotify, Line Notes, Amazon, and Apple. If you want to see how insane we look in person, you can also check us out on YouTube as well. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Chopping It Up.
Hey, buddy, just give you a heads up. I got a Taco Deluxe Supreme talking back at me, so I'm gonna be a while. So, do you mind waiting somewhere else and let me pass this beast in peace?